Who's that going to? Oh, I see the third party being YouTube.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, it's live on YouTube.
Yeah.
How would I see the chat though? Oh, if you're seeing this on YouTube, this is a demonstration of how I am a little rusty on this. Hmm. Hmm. Well, if you're just watching this after the fact, I'm going to have to turn the volume off here because that's going to just echo from what I'm seeing. But how will I even know that I'm on? Give me a second. I'm going to go and get my phone so I can watch the chat. Welcome. Yeah, I'm gonna if I switch back here. Hey, I see JT's in the chat and DHD doing activism in Dartford. Sorry, I wasn't game for it this weekend, my friend. So, um, yeah, Dean and Sarah were keen to do some activism this weekend. Wasn't in the, uh, I wasn't in, I wasn't in the right frame of mind, to be honest. This journey has not been without its challenges, and that's an understatement. I see Run Boston Bear JT is about to do the Boston Marathon. I guess it's next weekend, but I don't know. Um, Hi, Ian. Nice to see you. And John's take and Joshua Nels. How are you guys doing, Josh? The family are all well, and you're enjoying your Sunday under the Ken. It's been I guess it's assume the same for you, but it's been a lot of Kemming this last few days, particularly um, exceptional. Inspired me to put a video out the other day, a short one. I'd been trying to watch the moon, and uh, JT did some great footage out in Texas of the solar eclipse. Well, the so-called moon going in front of the sun. So we don't think it's the moon. And I've seen Nathan's there. So how are you doing, Squirrel Sniper? What I what I would love to do today, other than have it just a share some of my thoughts, is to invite. I've set this up as a Zoom call, which is why it's so clumsy. I set this up as a Zoom call so that people could come and hang out if they wanted to. Um, I can, but tomorrow okay. You're in Boston now. Yeah, I did think it must be close because you said you were doing a shakeout run the other day. but I was going to invite people in for a chit chat, just to give people an opportunity to come and have a word and say some of the things that are on their mind if that's what you fancy. Um, if not, fine, I'll just chat for an hour or so and see how the conversation goes. I seeing Run Boston Bear, aka JT, in the chat. He is being quite prolific, getting himself around and about, and becoming quite a popular, well-known voice on the flat Earth circuit. But for his endeavors, attracting the attention of those who hate who really dislike having their reality questioned. And he's a very amenable, loving, Christian, God loving kind of guy, and he has a wonderful way about him. But yeah, it can be quite tiresome dealing with the troll department. So I wish you all the strength with that journey. Um, I think I think I've been, if I was to see footage of me from 2017, 18, I know that I would feel like um, it's cost me so much to walk this way, and to take this journey. And I had such a spring in my step in those days, and the weight of this journey has certainly borne heavily on me. Maybe too heavily. Maybe I haven't got all my eggs in a ducks in a row. But my other friend Nathan, the airline pilot who walked away from his career of 15 years as a pilot in Australia, flying commercially, he's been moving around for the last year and a half, 2 years, and he said to me recently, he'd been in one place for 6 months and then had to bounce and bounce a couple of times, and in bouncing from place to place, he'd lost some of the stillness and the routine and so on. And I have no way of knowing yet, maybe one day we'll count it all up, but I have no way of knowing for sure how many times we've bounced from place to place in the last, coming up for 5 years now. But the number is somewhere between, conservatively, 150 times to perhaps nearer 200 times that we've bounced from house to house, place to place. And that's really taken a huge toll. And sometimes you and I guess I speak for more than just myself, is you wonder what's the point of it all. Should we just be finding our way inside the matrix, taking that bullshit job, blah blah blah. Anyway, I don't want to grumble. I see Unindoctrinate Ryan. How are you doing? I popped into a chat. I saw you yesterday in a chat. I'd listened into a little bit of a few minutes of Rose 777's. I think she was playing an old video of Crow, and I saw you in the chat there, but I wasn't really in the chatty kind of space, and I don't think that I think I was coming in at the end of it. But she's been playing some of Crow's stuff recently, so because I hadn't listened to Crow for a while. He's a learned chap, and he has some great information and some great guests. So even that first hour that he puts out there is valuable. So yeah, if firstly, let me just say good luck, JT, for the good luck. But go well, brother. For your Boston Marathon, I think it's his 12th or more marathons that he's done over in Boston, hence the name. I assume once a connection to the Beartaria or Owen Benjamin thing, which is why the Bear name. But um, JT was sharing with me the other day that he understanding that the ether is like in electricity, a charge, that the lungs are taking a charge from the ether. Having that in his mind has made his running feel a lot, his breathing feel a lot better. And it's been for a few years that I've been suggesting that the lungs are like electrical receivers and that the alveoli are taking electrical charge from food, sorry, from the air. Why I said food is because following my conversation with JT the other day, I started to wonder whether actually when we eat food, we're actually just taking electricity from the food. And that electrical charge is being absorbed into the system and in ways that we, through our modern science of the periodic table and through the way that we believe, various nutrients and proteins and so on are being absorbed in the body. They're just frequencies, they're just vibrations, and that our food is electrical. And therefore, the more living the food, the more electrical charge it contains. If you think about a pile of firewood, the firewood is going to give off all of that electrical charge when you burn the wood, and eventually it'll just be ash, and there will be little to no viable energy left in that pile of ash. And so the same is true with our food. Perhaps the more we cook it and the more it's processed, the less viable, the less vitality remains in the food stuff. So if you can get raw milk, some people even eat their meat raw, but certainly a raw food diet, or at least partially raw food, because perhaps some things need a little bit of cooking to help release some of the energy. And then trying to avoid overcooked food is probably good too. But anyway, the point is, good luck for your run tomorrow, brother. I'll be thinking about you and hoping that it is an easy um, an easy finish all the way through to the end. John's take no doubt, brother. Yeah, I'll pop on shortly. I've got lots of news. Oh, okay, well, what I'll do is in a minute I will put a link in the chat. How I will actually pull that off is going to be a little clumsy, but I will put a link in the chat, which is obviously a little bit risky because, anybody can pick that up. So, I welcome, anybody to come on in, but I know that there are people who listen to this channel who have views that are sometimes strongly opposed to mine, which I can handle a little bit of, but at the same time, I don't really want to have this conversation dominated by people who insist that eating meat is like a crime against God, and we're sinners or whatever for doing things like that. So yeah, I see a question there from Dean about, is God water? And it's a thought by Dr. Bass Ackwards, who's a musician. And I got referred to by Dean. I haven't actually listened to any of his music yet, but he's prolific, it seems, in producing his own music and lyrics. Is God water? It's a great question because I think that the ether is water. Um, the ether is the ether in my one of my theories is that the ether is a the living medium in which everything exists. So, whoops. So, so yeah. So the ether is a living medium in which everything in this realm exists, and therefore, I could say the simple answer I could say is yes, that God is water, but that might be an oversimplification because God, as we understand it, or as I like to think of God, is everything. And so, is the ether everything? I'm not sure. Is a firmament and the floor that is hot and lava, is it all modalities of the ether in different states of energetic movement or heat and light? Is it all that? If so, then yes, we are breathing God into us. Um, yeah, so I made this. I you might have heard me say this before, but I made this leap of linguistic play. Um, that water is short. Well, the short way of saying water is watt, and watt is the measure of electricity. They say, I think it's James Watt is given as the guy who gives us the term watts of electricity, but that could well be a made up name or someone given a name to be the character that presents watts to the world. But water is perhaps electricity. And water, spelled with an H, silent H, water, allows us to turn the word water into ether. Um, it does require a little bit of play to take an E and turn it into a W. But if you'll allow me that flexibility, then I think that water and ether are synonymous, but that the that the water or the ether is in different states depending on pressure and heat. So lack of heat, it turns into ice. Under pressure, the ether turns into water. Um, and and so and when it's under only 1 bar of pressure, it's what we consider to be the air. And at the sea level is the point where that kind of pressure is such that it's in a state of water. It can be misted and lifted up into the ether. The ether can be squeezed by cooling to cause condensation on your glass or rain under the right conditions, or mist. I'm not talking about the chem mist that is so prevalent at the moment. So those are, oh, hey, I see the Trinities is, Andrea's got herself onto the other phone. She must have, yeah, she must have. I see Singe Man is there. How are you doing? Nice to see you. And Bon Bon, nice to see you, sister. Um, yeah, water is concentrated light. That's Ian's comment, and I really resonate with that comment, Ian, I have to say, because you may have heard me say this before, but at the risk of being redundant, because perhaps others haven't heard me say this, I have this sense that we're talking about the black hole and how light is drawn into a black hole, and then the black hole, it becomes super dense. It's like, a tiny amount of it weighs millions of kilograms or whatever. And so is it possible that if everything in this world is electromagnetic, then then light has been pushed through a black hole process, if you'll allow me that, in order for it to become material as we experience it here in this realm. So in that way, it means that not only is the water condensed light, electrical charge, but the trees, you, everything is really just light energy squeezed through a black hole. It goes further, the theory goes further into how then, is the light of the father, the sperm, connecting into a black hole in the womb, in the mother, and then that process of that tiny amount of light then creating the first bit of matter, that the cells that become the living being. Is that how it happens? It also offers the possibility that the trees are, and things that are living, are actually taking life force from the ether around them. Yes, we know about photosynthesis in the mainstream, but whether the ether itself isn't generating or providing a mechanism for growth. If you put a seed into a sealed container, will it be able to flourish, or does it need that initial etheric energy input? Now, I'm kind of sort of doubting myself a little bit because of the experiments where people have sealed a jar with a plant in it, and then the plant has managed to grow without, I don't know whether without fresh air, but certainly without water. And when they finish, they weigh everything at the end. It's kind of, it like weighs more than everything that they put into it. On the flip of that, when we think about the wood burning, you take a ton, I've said this before, you take a ton of firewood and burn it. Tomorrow morning, you will have a few kilograms at most of ash, assuming you've burnt it thoroughly. And all that left, all that was created in that burning process was heat and light. So we're reversing a process which had 1 ton of tree reduced back to grams, maybe a kilogram of ash. And all that was there was heat and light. So it seems to me that everything is a compression of heat and light. So I'll offer that. I do want to, hi, Caleb. Different frequencies. Yeah, different frequencies is definitely it. I think that, like that when they talk about the DNA, what they're talking about, and it's 3 billion strands, or it's just music in a way. It's just a whole musical symphony that lasts for 3 billion notes. And there's this variation of between these four, they use 4 letters, don't they? But it's this variation of them and the placement of them that give us all the variables that we see. And in nature, there's nothing that's the same. Every leaf, every snowflake, I might have heard that on the Crow 777 thing I mentioned earlier on with Ryan. That everything is a frequency. and on the DMT in 2015, that's really what I saw, you know. So it really helps me to kind of feel comfortable with this idea that everything is a frequency and we are a symphony, an orchestra created by God within God. You know, that we are within the body of God. And you know, I use the term God because everybody understands that term as the all, whilst I'm aware that there may well be demigods, there may be you know, like any orchestra has got its major players and then the minor players, and it may well be that. But whenever I think of God and I'm talking about God, I'm expressing this idea of this benevolent all, the most loving, you know, sort of, the big guy, you know, not some, because it is possible that this world is run by, or rather usurped by, but maybe run by on purpose. I can't know. That it is usurped by some God that the creators of the Federal Reserve, who in God we trust, those people, that God may not be the God that I'm referring to. Um, yeah, I do. Let me just see about the link. Andrea's asking that. The seed has the spark already. Well, I mean, is the seed the spark? Just, because the seed on its own cannot flourish. The seed needs the soil. The seed needs a few things, like some heat and a bed to grow in. Possibly light, but not always, as we know, there's things that can grow without, in the absence of light. So the seed is that, I think you're right, and that the seed, if you think about the tomato, is buried inside of a body of liquidy jelly, which might even be how it kind of, when the semen arrives at the place in the female, that it's a similar kind of jelly that it will immerse itself in or bury itself in, which is the soil for the growth process to be initiated. And the seed is also, you can also say just the first three letters, and you're saying C. C being, of course, where mainstream science says that life came from the ocean, it came from the sea. So in that way, there is truth hidden in that. Of course, we didn't emerge as fish with legs and stuff and walk onto the land, but in a way, the process of the 9 months of gestation takes you from the seed to what looks like a little kind of tadpole fish character uh, to a almost monkey-like looking little 3-4 month old fetus, to then fully evolved into the, the little baby. So Sinjman says, I like to think of God as a guy I hang out with, play checkers, chess, and joke. I can hang out. Mm. When I did the DMT syndrome in 2015, you might have heard me say this already, but when I did the DMT, I was an atheist, and immediately I was immersed in a love that was so universally infinite, such an infinite love, and such a place of everything's cool, you know. Um, and even though I don't claim to have had an interview with God or a direct connection, it might have been, I can't know, but it felt to me like I was really just at the steps to, that I was meeting more with my higher self, although it was maybe God's love that I was suffused in. So some say I could have gone deeper than I did, and maybe have got up the ladder a little bit closer to God. So I don't make claims about ever having met God, but certainly the idea of playing checkers and chess and hanging out and having a good time seems to me, a place of no judgment and total love. So, um, you love thanking the Creator over food. Uh, well, it's not a bad idea. And actually, the energy we impart into and the love that we impart into our water and into our food has a bearing on our well-being, I think. So it's probably a good idea. Thing is that got to be careful how I say this, but I think that God is, like I said earlier, in ether, is in everything. So is it possible that um, God is in the food that we eat? So, and I'm going to minimize us a little bit to say, like, imagine if you were a healthy friendly bacteria in your stomach. You know, that friendly bacteria is going to be grateful for the cheese or whatever that you've just eaten. Um, not knowing that that is really just or it's eating part of your body system, because inside of your gut, you've got forests and swamps and all sorts of things, little oceans with things swimming around it at the macro micro level. So sometimes I wonder if it's a little bit like that. And when we squabble about whether we should eat this food or that food, it's like, but this food is all created by God, not obviously the fast, the ready meals, or the super, you know whether it's the food that they make in factories, the Bill Gates type of fake burgers and stuff like that. I know obviously one could argue that even the chemicals that they're using are within the system and therefore of the system. But I think if you're tampering with nature, if you're altering it, um, a little bit like if you were taking needles and putting them in your arm, you're altering the natural order, and that's going to have a bearing on the quality of the food. Um, but people have done exercises where they've taken tap water, and even when they take toxic tap water, they can imbue it with love and get a great result from that. So I'm going to try and I'm going to try and put the link into the chat. If I can do that, let's see. Um, I think I can give myself a thumbs up, actually. I don't know. I don't know if it's private. I don't know why it's private and yet you can see it. Um, Hmm. That's weird, isn't it? Let me see. I might have to ask Andrea to help me with that. Um, what I'm going to do is, Andrea, is I'm going to send you an email with the link. Oh, look, I see JT has emailed me, so I'm going to give the link to you, JT, and you're welcome. Come on in. There's the link.
Can you go into email?
Yeah, I've just emailed it to JT, so if you can go and get that
Okay, and
and put it in the
can I
chat.
put it in the chat?
Yeah, yeah, okay. Run Boston Bear has got lots to share. Sounds fair. Uh, click next to participants. I have actually copied the link. I did that before the it started. Wow, that was quick. That was quick. This guy is fast. He's going to run a 3 hour marathon, I think, maybe 3:15. Let me just see.
Let's see. Hey,
JT, how you doing, brother?
good man. Hopefully under three. I'd like to try to break 250, but we'll give it our best shot, man. It's been an
Oh,
exciting trip.
good luck. Yeah. Wow, you have been getting around because you took quite a road trip the other day well, it was only an hour and a half, you said, from home, so it wasn't that big, but you camped out overnight at a friend, and so you turned it into a whole family mission. I
Yeah, it was
was,
really it was
I was
epic.
before you start, I was impressed by your, well, firstly, um, your ability to hold it all together because you were obviously dealing with battery issues, you were dealing with camera being knocked down, you were dealing with the heat, you're dealing with your little people. But at the end, towards the end of the day, you're like, you know what, I'm going to call the stream and I'm going to go and spend an hour or two with my children in the park before we have to move on from the day. So it was nice to see that.
Yeah, man. I did not plan on streaming. That's the funny thing. Like I brought the equipment to just film with my P1000 and kind of keep track of that. But what happened, I just went with the flow. I just set up the camera and I was like, hey, I'm gonna set up, I'm gonna just set up right here. And I thought it was gonna be like a brief, hey, I'm glad this is happening. We'll see you guys later. But people popped into the chat and they were like, hey, it's Run Boston Bear. Oh, Run Boston Bear has a stream going. And I was like, oh shoot. And the next thing I knew, I had 60 people in there, and that's the most I've ever had. And I was like, whoa, I know these people. These are my friends. So next thing you know, it became like one of the official live streams.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome.
But I didn't have it
I
ready.
did share that on my community page. So if anybody wants to find it, but of course you can go and subscribe to Run Boston Bear if you haven't already.
Yeah, I still have plans on editing it down, like removing some of the banging around and all, I adjusted the camera so many times. I have all the P1000 footage, which I can share with you on this morning if you want to see some of the actual clear shot. I've sent some to Crow 777. Rose wanted some, and they're really impressed with the image I got where when the orb or the black disk or whatever it is that's obstructing the sun, whenever it was just departing, I didn't put my solar filter back on really, really quick because it wasn't too bright. And you could see just like this big, whatever the thing is, you could see its entirety. And I've seen
Okay.
that before with the moon, where the moon has just a very tiny sliver, and you can see
Yeah.
like the rest of whatever it is.
Totally with you on that. When it comes to the moon, many times, I've looked at the quarter moon or less than quarter moon and gone, to those that are watching with me, I'm like, look, there's like a disc. You can see the whole of a circle that appears to be then this little bit of light. It's almost like I sometimes think of it as, a furnace like
Hmm.
you would get on a steam train, and they have these like the sliding door that can open up. Well, it's as though this furnace has door has opened and it's allowing a little chink of light to emanate from the edge of it. And and so it appears if you take that whole circle plus this chink, it's almost like it's an oblate ball or circle because it's not just one round. It's almost like it's expanding. It's a little bit more than a circle on a circle. So it's interesting to see that. I was also this may have something to do with your filter,
Hmm.
but because I think because what happened was you were filming and the totality occurred and it was like completely dark and then all of a sudden it just went dark, like it was like all of a sudden light just blew out of all the way around the ring. So I thought, was that when you'd taken the filter off?
Right. So you leave the filter on the whole time it's going to eclipse. And when you hit full totality, it looks pitch black because it's very dim. Like, and you have to unscrew your solar filter real quick, and that's when it goes boom, and you get
Uh,
what light is left. But you'll hear me in the video. I'll show it in a minute. When I'm messing with my camera and I'm seeing it, I'm amazed by it. But I look up, and when it hits me, I'm just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh! Like I didn't even know how to handle it. It was so interesting.
Fantastic. Well, well done for all of that.
Yeah.
And then I assume because you've obviously flown to Boston.
Yeah,
So,
I've got that's part of my story. So the trip up, oh man, my story, good grief. So I picked up a buddy of mine named Kevin, who's a good running friend. He doesn't know I'm a flat earther or biblical cosmology believer. And I thought to myself, you have your internal dialogue. And I'm like, okay, do I need to tell this guy? And what do I need to tell him? Like, how much do I need to tell him? And then my brain said, well, you might talk to Witsit about some things, and you might talk to, because see what, I don't know if you knew this. Yesterday, I talked with the unnamed Mr. F-15. Yeah, that's how I
oh,
keep him anonymous. I got Mr. F-15 in touch with Cujo for a Zoom call yesterday for 2 hours. So Ben from Taboo Conspiracy, me, and Cujo and Mr. F-15 discussed the realm, their flight experience, life. I mean, we prayed, we talked about just this movement. It was amazing. It was amazing. And we absolutely live on a stationary topographical plane. Much of their instruments show so. They woke up to it because of what they saw, in their aircraft. And so I knew that conversation was pending and coming, and I was gonna have to have some phone calls to line up. Um, and so Kevin hopped in the car, and it wasn't long, and I was asking him if he had ever heard of biblical cosmology because he's a Christian, he's a believer. So I was like, okay, this is either going to go really good for us or really bad because people can have a knee-jerk reaction to just immediately turn off or be very opposed to it. Almost, they get so uncomfortable immediately that it's like conversation's over. You know what I mean? I've seen that with
yeah,
people.
I know what you
So
mean.
so I brought it up and I was just like, hey man, I'm just gonna tell you what I believe, like what I'm looking into, because for the last 2 years I've been on a truth journey where I've wanted to know what the truth is in all things. Like what, like I did on the video where I said like food, what's in food, why are people sick, and this and that. And he's like, yeah, yeah, man, yeah, I get it. I said, but a friend of mine told me 2 years ago that he didn't believe the story of outer space is provable, scientifically provable or accurate to what reality is. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, I'd never heard of flat Earth. So I just told him my personal story of how it was introduced to me so that I could in turn tell him. And to let you know, I think that we don't live on a spinning ball slinging around the sun. That's just a story. I mean, it's a theory. And he's like, well, yeah, I mean, I knew it was a theory. And, I know gravity's a theory. I said, yeah, man. So most of the people in all the world, they believe what they were told when they were little, and they believe what all the scientists of the day believe. But really, I think it's theory on theory on theory with patchwork and band-aids to hold together this non-unified theory called
Mm.
heliocentrism. And as I laid it out, he was cool and chill with it. And I got my phone calls done, and he heard that. And I mean, I'm not gonna say like he's a flat earther. He's only had a day, but he's open and neutral to everything that he's seen, and he
Oh,
observed the pilot stalking, which is like freaking cool. And he's just been like, man, this is cool. Um, a little bit more of my story because this was the transition, like basically from picking him up to the airport and we flew. Okay, I'm trying to remember when it happened because we dropped, yeah, no, no, we dropped our car off and we had to take a bus from the long-term parking to the airport. and on the bus we were just relaxing and chilling. And there was a young lady sitting across from me, and she was nice, and just I struck up conversation like, hey, hope you're having a good travels or whatever. We're going to Boston to run the Boston Marathon. She's like, oh, that's awesome. I told her, yeah, it's my 12th year in a row. She said, that's really neat. And she had an Invisalign, and this is really funny. This is for people that are trying to like talk true earth with people. You can just strike up normal conversations with people and just connect about random stuff. And then I was like, oh, is that an Invisalign? She's like, yeah, yeah. It straightens my teeth. And I was like, does it hurt? She's like, no. Like, yeah, my bottom teeth are all messed up. And she said something, something, and then she said, yeah, and I don't know why it went to this. She's like, oh, yeah, I'm a pilot. And I was like, commercial? She said, no, just like small aircraft. And I was like, that's awesome. And then in my head said, plant the seed or whatever. So I went like this. Hey, surprisingly, I was like, oh, you're a pilot? Wow. And I was like, hey, do you know the Earth's flat? Like as a joke, as lightheartedness or whatever. And she was like, yeah, yeah, it is. It is. And there's like a firmament over us, and like we've been lied to.
Whoa.
So after talking to Kevin and him being neutral, I'm just kicking it, still going to Boston. And I had an absolute amazing response from someone that was a flat earther and a pilot. And she doesn't know me. And she's from my hometown. So anyway, that's one
Awesome.
what I wanted to tell you. I'll pause if you want to say anything because I've got more.
No, well, I think I mean I saw you doing a little bit of activism. I didn't see all of the beginning of your stream the other day, the first half of your stream before it crashed, um, where you'd obviously had a good conversation with someone that had been fairly fruitful, and then you met someone who was digging their heels in pretty hard pretty soon, you know. But I did admire your tenacity and your willingness to stay, you know, on the calm with him.
Mhm.
So, but awesome that you had such a cool conversation with that pilot. You know, did you manage to because you know when it's a pilot, I'm thinking gyroscopes and some of the things that you know people are convinced are accounting for curvature. You know? So, did you have the opportunity to talk about anything else with the pilot?
With her, she rattled off two or three things instrumentally speaking that let her know. And I'm gonna be honest, like a lot of this stuff goes over my head the first time I hear it because I'm like, oh, I mean, I don't know what that means. I can tell you in a minute what I heard the fighter pilots talking about that I can relay well. But the girl said two things that were like this and this. Like she basically explained what woke her up in her own plane or whatever. Um, but I guess I'll jump to the pilot real quick. Just remember we left off the story with the girl. So
Yes, on the
when I was
bus.
yeah, on the bus. So with what you're asking, basically, they were talking about radar and they were talking about their horizontal. And so they in a fighter jet, you always have to know what is your horizontal to the ground? What is your level? Because you're going to be banking and pitching and changing angles all super fast.
Mm,
And one of the things that they were
obviously.
saying is they couldn't figure out they weren't able to say how could this do the math fast enough to be real time with my basically where they are in space. So that's one of the things. One thing that really struck me was I don't want to give too many descriptive things on who this guy is, but one of his roles was to look ahead for storms, and he would go, say they're at like 35,000 feet, and he could check out 20, 40, 60, and 80 nautical miles ahead of him, and basically storm clouds, big huge storm clouds, they'll pop up into like where you're going. Your horizontal will have the tips of these huge storm
Mm,
clusters, and he'll have to
mm,
mark here, 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 and tag them so that they don't hit them because if they flew through the tips of these storm clouds, there'd be hail in there, there'd be just things that could damage the instruments and stuff. So they have to
sure,
avoid it.
sure.
But what was interesting, if you think about like a top-down view, like if this is a top-down view, I'll do this hand. This is a top-down view, and these are storms like 20 nautical miles away, and these are 40, these are 60, and these are 80, okay? And the tips of
Hmm.
all these, now we're looking regular. So the tips of these storms are sticking up that he has to avoid. But at 20, 40, 60, and 80, they're linear, they're straight out. And if it was a globe and the storms were, kind of like the clouds were kind
Yes.
of to the contour
Yes.
of the globe, then it
Yes.
would be lower. And they went
Yes.
into a lot of conversations about radar and where's the bad guy. One point is like, if this is the horizontal and they're flying, if they see anybody above their horizontal, that means or the horizon, that means they're above them. If they're on the horizon, they're at their level, and if they're lower, then they're below them. And
Yes.
it's really important to know this in air-to-air
Yes.
combat because you want the higher position. Because if somebody's flying in a higher position,
Yeah.
it's more efficient for
Yeah.
the rockets to go downhill. Think about like efficiency in a car or like just the efficiency overall. Less drag, you're not going uphill, less fuel, easier to get to that person. And it's also
Yeah.
like a longer reach. So
Yeah.
if you're level, you can shoot a particular distance, and if they're up, you can't shoot them as well. If they're down, you can shoot them easier. It's almost like having a longer arm to reach out. Like in boxing, the higher position gives
Yeah.
you more reach.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, it became so obvious early on that, if you were, I mean, as a 10-year-old, I got to sit in a cockpit of a 747 between Johannesburg and London for quite a long time, probably half an hour. But it seems to, and so you can see the the tabletop of cloud stretching as far as you can see, and you fly for 5 or 10 minutes, and then you can see for another 5 or 10 minutes worth of flying time, and any sort of cumulonimbus that's sticking out like a mountain sticking out above that is still level. And yes, if you're going to rise, you'll have to rise if you want to go above it. It's not sitting low. But if two fighter jets are coming towards each other like this, and that they're at the same altitude,
Hmm.
but they're 50 miles or nautical miles apart, when one fires a missile at the other, he knows instinctively and naturally, he knows that his missile is going to fly in a straight line to meet the other plane. It's not going to do this in order to kind of go around the curvature of that. Thanks for that information. But when I said what was the pilot saying about that, I was meaning the Invisalign pilot.
Oh, oh,
I
that's
wasn't meaning
funny.
I wasn't meaning the
You
other
were
one. So
asking me what she thought about her Invisalign?
no. I was asking what she was saying was her. Did you say anything to her about, because she said, yeah, I know it's flat. Did you say, yeah, and like, gyroscope is an obvious thing and things like that? Was there any further to and fro with the Invisalign pilot?
Oh, just a little bit. We didn't have much time. It was like the last seconds before we were getting off the bus. It was a small conversation, and yeah, I think honestly, for me personally, it was just one of those divine appointments that needed to happen, I guess for me or for Kevin or something, because it
Yeah,
didn't have to
for
happen.
Kevin, yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah,
I didn't have any kind of goal of flat smacking anybody. I mean, uh, it just was a genuine conversation between two people that are obviously understand that we don't live on a spinning ball, but neither of us knew that. And in the small conversation, confirmation that we knew the truth, or at least have sought out the truth that heliocentrism is false. Connection, smiles, thank you, bye. That's about all that was.
and how long did you know how long she'd known this, or I
No,
don't
I mean,
know.
this was a very brief, like, you're rushing and hustling to the airport. I mean, it wasn't like a long bus ride. It was just minutes. So, that's all that happened, but it was still amazing that it happened.
Did
Um, to
did
the
you get
other
your
pilot,
channel name?
uh,
Did you give her your channel?
I didn't even think to
Oh,
share. I just was like in the moment.
oh.
That's so it's what's so funny about me, just so you know, and you already know, or the people in the chat. I live so in the moment. I'm not good enough yet, like you and Flat Earth Dave, to be like, okay, hand him a blue, a card, or give him your channel name, and like to keep the connection. I have
Mm.
more of my story pending where gave my email to somebody because we're probably 30% through of everything that I've got to drop on you.
You
Because
go ahead.
yeah, so living in the moment, not being scared of anything other people think about me. I heard you say earlier in the beginning that, like, I'm a Christian person, and I wanted to clarify that there is a lot of convoluted twisting inversion with religion, all religions, even
Oh,
Christianity. And I might not even claim or quickly claim, especially in the truth community, that I'm a Christian. I want people to know me as a follower of the Messiah. Like I believe the Most High, the Creator is above us on the seventh layer of the firmament dome, if there are layers. And ultimately, and I'm not trying to preach at anybody. I want to follow the way of Yeshua. I want to emulate his love and his grace that he showed people. Turning the other cheek, just I know there's a story of him flipping over the money changer tables in the sanctuary. Like there's a time and a place for all of us to be aggressive and hold our ground very firmly, or even fight back. Like if somebody comes in my house at night, I'm not going to be just this meek and mild Christian boy that does nothing. I'm going to be vicious. No one knows this side of me, because that's not the I don't live there. I live in peace and joy. And if we're talking beliefs, like if somebody else believes a different religion or doesn't believe in God at all, or believes aliens seated us here, that's no reason for me to be upset with them, because they have a
Mm,
right as a man or woman to make the free will choice to look into and believe what they want about what brought us here. So I don't get triggered and I don't get mad. I see a lot of people that get super irritated if someone believes something different, differently than them. I think it's programmed into us by the world to immediately divide. Like they want division and they want us
yes.
to attack each other. So,
Yeah.
as I've said before, Dave, you and I don't think exactly the same about everything, but all I've got is love for you. We've got a great friendship. It doesn't matter where we don't line up exactly, because we line up on the things that matter. We're
Mm,
fearfully and wonderfully made. We're beautiful, unique individuals. No one can steal our free will. We have a right to ask questions and pursue truth in all things. It's not weird to reanalyze things that they say it's scientifically proven. Well, let's scientifically take a look at that again. Isn't that science? Aren't you allowed in science to go back and just double check the results that they got or the reasoning? So anyway, that's a little bit of a diatribe, but you're free to think what you want, and I think I'm in the community to try to help kind of calm the ant fire. Like that there's like fires on both sides. Everybody's just angry, and I want to be this
mm.
calm, gentle guy that comes in and says, "Can we just talk about it?" So, I don't even know
Flat
where I was.
Earth Dave, for those who don't know, Flat Earth Dave referred to JT as the mayor, I think recently, or suggested that you should be put up for the mayor because of
Yeah, here, let me see if
your approach. But you see, can I just add something before you go on?
yeah, absolutely.
Today being Sunday is often a day that I think about being in Speaker's Corner, and that's where I kind of created. That's where I cut my teeth really in Speaker's Corner, doing street activism, and one of the things that you see in Speaker's Corner is Christian versus Muslim, um, and Jew, but Christian versus Muslim, black and white, a bit, issues come up. But I feel like I would rather stand with the Christian and stand with the Muslim than say, because I get asked this question, and if I feel like if I take a man-made identity, then I'm having to bat for that team, and I'm an opponent to the other. When I would rather go, and you have this very loving approach to it, is that it doesn't matter that we don't necessarily agree on the same things. We have this reverence of the Creator, of the Most High, and I think that that's something that we have in common. I have a similar rapport, or I build a rapport with some of the Muslim speakers, because although they refer to God as Allah, in my view, this is the same God, and that we all come from the same God, and that God is a loving God who would, if anything, be uh, rewarding or acknowledging endeavor in a loving way, versus one in which we are um, riven. Now, I mean, it may be the case that God forgives all things. I can't know that all the nastiness and some of the horrible things that happen with children and so on are all in that category. So I don't stretch it when it comes to saying that. But when it comes to kind of people working together and showing honor and respect to each other and to God, then this is, I think, the highest attainment that we can have. Just because I was born in a different country in which the language we use to express that love is different than the language of that country should not mean that we are brought into disharmony with each other. And I think that just today or yesterday, the Iran, Israel, Middle East thing just took another ratchet up towards us having, dare I say, a sort of Islamic Christian war, with Jews somewhere in the middle of that. And I don't want to be drawn into having to take a side when it comes to that. I would rather stand with all and say, hey, we're all in this together, rather than I have to defend Christianity. I lost the guy who took me through the DMT experience in 2015 is a Jewish guy, and we'd been friends since the early 1990s, when we'd worked in a bar together in Cape Town, and then of course I'd run into him in 2015, and this is how I got introduced to the DMT. And he, some years later, we were still in touch with each other, still good mates and what have you. And then I guess this is 2016, and I'd already learned an awful lot about things, and maybe 2017. And he was saying, do you support Israel? And I was like, I don't want to support one over the other, because these are man-made machinations that are getting us into conflict with each other. It's not that I mean, I see the plight, and I understand that people have all got they've all got a dog in the race and stuff, but I want to try and not take a label, but rather than know that we are all equally created in God's image. So that's my little bit on that, and why, in a way, because I in the early days of Flat Earth in 2015, 16, I probably would have branded myself a Christian again, because I felt that was the Bible was so right, given it's Flat Earth, cosmology and so on, that it had been right all along. But I felt like if I take that label and then I go and stand in Speaker's Corner and say, this is what I am, then I'm immediately an opposite of my brother who's a Muslim. And he's a loving man, he's a family man, he's none of the things that people try and paint about certain members of their community. But because I've got this badge and he's got that badge, we struggle to come together. And that's the biggest arguments that you see in Speaker's Corner, is between the dogmatic Christian and the dogmatic Islamist. And it's that dogmatism, that sort of right wing, if you like, of the religion that gets people into the sorts of trouble that we're in. And in a way, I think that is being stoked on purpose, and perhaps has perhaps always been intended to create the conditionality for us to go to war with each other, in the way that America went to war with the Northerners and the Southerners and so on, and yet you're all brethren of the same land, and in Europe we've gone to war with the Germans, and so it seems that Russia and Islam and maybe China are all going to be brought into conflagration. And if I become this proud British and what have you, and I want to go and stand for the Brits and so on, it's like I've bought into that club, and I can't see myself wanting to do that. I did it for South Africa when I was a youngster, but I can't see myself doing that again. So with that said, I'll hand you the mic.
Oh yeah, I feel you, the vibe, the I understand, and like I'll be 44 in July. Most of my life was lived in the Bible Belt of East Texas, and the Christian banner was over my life. And so the weird thing about my journey is, so from a young, tiny kid all the way up through college, I was quote unquote a Christian, but I was living just like the world. And that was real strange for my spirit, for my heart, my mind, because I claimed Christ. I claimed to know, he died on the cross for my sins. Anything I do is, the sins are forgiven, past, present, and future. But some of this stuff that's just told, I don't think is true or correct. I think where I'm at right now as a person is what's most important for any single one of us is, and this is my, my stance or my position. I think every person's relationship with the Messiah is more important than anything. Um, and that's just because of how much fruit has grown in my life since surrendering to the Messiah and saying, I make a terrible life of my own. When I'm God in my own life, it goes pretty rough. But every single time I've yielded my emotions, my mentality, my heart, my energy, I've yielded everything that could possibly know to be me. As I've yielded that over to the Creator and said, will you show me today what you want me to do, like how to go about this day? Show me the next pebble or stone to step on. And so I
Mm,
never really know very far into the future what's actually going to happen. I just want to take the faith step, the next little faith step, and the next little faith step. And my hopes are, and some people listening, they may think this sounds like woo woo or too soft or Christian or something, but this is just my heart, man. I think the creator will guide me. I have hopes that he will. And then when I look back like a week ago to now, or a month ago to now, I can see like, oh, okay, I'm on the path. I know I'm on the
mm,
path. But in
mm,
this very moment, I don't know that I'm on the path. I don't know if that makes sense because I can't know the future. And my success in walking with the creator is dependent on me staying empty and allowing him to lead. So in this very present moment, I just have to be trusting and faithful and look for gratitude.
mm,
And if there's things that are trying to steal my joy, like ask, well, why is that trying to steal my joy? Because really, I could get in a bad car accident or something horrific could happen in my family. We know in life you can get dealt a very tremendous like blow because we just live in a fallen world that can come and happen. So just because I'm following the creator doesn't mean he's going to protect me from an accident or an insane person.
yeah.
So I've told when we were on the phone, when we were on a Zoom call before, I said that I live my life with my kids in here and financial is in here and health and my running and my, flat earth activism, just everything that makes me is in an open hand. Because if it's tight, like I have to have this to be happy. I have to have this a certain way or I'm unhappy. I don't think that's any kind of way to live. I'm kind of going off where I wanted to even steer this was I wanted to point out Witsit did a very amazing stream and it's titled Zionism it's on Rumble. It can't be on YouTube. I recommend everyone go to Rumble, find Witsit Gets It, and look at his first stream with that title that I said. He is really unveiling or breaking through some of the spiritual attacks because Christianity has been used to control people and move them around like pawns and put them under their thumb. And I mean, we're on YouTube now, so I can't really go into much of it, but let me say this and then I'll hand the mic back. The way that I'm doing my life is like a child, and I want to be inquisitive about what creation is. I want to be in awe of the beauty of nature and the awe of the way that Dave and I and anybody in the chat can connect human to
Mm,
human. Like
mm,
the beauty that can be found in forming in new relationships or old relationships that have connected millions of times, that connection is what life's all about. And we also have that connection with the creator. We can't understand it quite as well because with Dave and I, we're human beings that have had a set number of years of experience and we can jive and connect and not fight about our differences. But with the creator, I believe he knows all. He's outside of, time and space or whatever. He knows that I'm saying this now and I didn't even know it. I believe he's all powerful and all wise. So we're in this funny deal where we're in these fleshly bodies, right? We're in these meat suits, and we know that they're temporary. We're not going to be in this suit forever, but we have a spirit, I feel, that's eternal.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to ask the man that, or the entity that created this place and me, I'm saying, show me how to do it because I do it wrong. And it's not titled Christianity. It's not titled a religious something. It's just on the base facts of it is why don't we connect and be nice and be loving if at all possible and see where it goes. And you can call that whatever you want.
I love that.
Me too.
I actually feel my heart opening to that message. I feel, and hopefully people in the chat can feel the same thing. And I smiled when you said childlike reverence, because while you were talking, I was thinking about how the innocence of that, and I mean that in the most respectful way, the innocence of just putting it out there. Because in the Bible it says, to be like childlike in your wonder, and that we should. I believe, I might be paraphrasing a little bit. I believe that that's what we're called to do, is to be like the child, and just like my little Zizi, he's coming up for 7 years old now, but he meets each day with like he's open to anything, and he has such a wonderful way, but we kind of tend to lose that with the world that we live in. So it's great that you've found that, and it's a great call or encouragement to others to take a similar hand open approach. The last few years, have been so tumultuous for me that I think that I have closed my fist or my heart to that. I remember when we flew to South Africa in 2021, it was in the middle of the pandemic, and we actually didn't have any money. This lovely couple had reached out to us, and they'd actually paid for a flight to get us to South Africa, and we had hopes to sort of go into a partnership with them, which never came to pass. But I said I remember saying, because I'm not on Facebook anymore, but I remember I sort of, I'd burned so many bridges on Facebook because of me trying to push flat Earth and other things, and I remember saying, like, because we were landing in an unknown situation. Well, we knew South Africa, but we hadn't lived there for 25 years, and we didn't have the network that I used to have. I mean, even just going back to 2015, when I would still be like 2014, I'd still been like this, military veteran hero, and there was lots of people who wanted to connect with me. And then, of course, I'd started telling them about 9/11 and flat Earth and stuff, and all of that had gone away. And my family were not interested in me coming out to South Africa. By that I mean my father and my sister, and I think my other sister who lives in California, she, me calling out the pandemic right in the early days, it killed my relationship, or really damaged it. So we were going out to South Africa sort of on a wing and a prayer. And I put in my Facebook there, and it was someone who'd been an atheist just years before. I said, I work for God now. I wrote that. I work for God now. And then we found ourselves immersed in like all sorts of challenges, and how are we going to pay for tomorrow night's or tonight's accommodation? And this went on for months and months and months. We were there for 11 months. And but I guess when you look back, just like you were saying, when you look back, we smile, and we got amazing photographs and memories, and we made connections with some people. We were able to help people, as well as being helped ourselves, by people who reached out to help us. my YouTube channel got taken away, and so a lot of the support that I was getting up to that point kind of went away, and I felt like I was working under the protection of God, and that it was all going to be fine, and yet, oh my gosh, it's been hair-pullingly sort of challenging and so on. So to the point where, like I said, it's kind of closed things off. We were stopped. We were banned from South Africa for 5 years. We were banned from flying on Virgin Atlantic for life. We are getting the thing with the South African authorities overturned, and that's because of Zizi's visa. And hopefully, we should get that overturned. I heard from someone in the South African officialdom last week, and hopefully that's going to be overturned, and perhaps we can go back. But it's been, I guess, and maybe this is an important part of it, JT, isn't it? It's been a test of faith, really. So it's lovely to hear your approach to it, and it is actually encouraging. And I would encourage anybody listening to really take heart from what JT was saying there about living life open, with a hand open, because many people I've encountered in the flat Earth community over the last 8, 9 years have been we're so in a way ostracized, and in a way so mistrusting of everything that's out there. We don't necessarily even trust each other because we've become so mistrusting of everything that we've been taught and everything that we know. And I myself have approached people over the years, or had people approach me over the years, and I've not thought, and I got to the point where, because up until the incident I told you about in 2018, after the Guardian newspaper thing, up until that, I'd gone from the atheist takes the DMT. Now I know that I'm an infinite being of love, and I can't be harmed, and all of this, and I just take the world on, in sort of faith and trust that I'm held. Then the thing happens in October 2018, November 2018. Well, in October was the police raid on the house, but November was this event that occurs, and it kind of crushed me a lot, and it made me more fearful. And I have had that faith in that our Creator has got us. I've had that tested, and yeah, I've had that tested, and you probably heard me say, like the last 5 years, it's been some 150 to 200 house moves, places of stay, a night here, a week there, a month here, whatever. It's been so much movement, so much upheaval, very little time for that stillness and those disciplines of taking care of oneself, So it's
my response to what you just said, jumping back to your little boy, it's amazing. And kids, I have three. Everybody knows, I think by now, I have a 7 and a 5 and a 3-year-old as well. I'm a stay-at-home dad. The innocence is valuable, and the innocence is beautiful. And basically, a part of what gives them that innocence is they're not very programmed yet, and they're not very traumatized yet. So we adults that are, 20, or I mean, it's getting more traumatizing younger and younger. But if you're, 20 plus years old, you've been through a lot of experiences and a lot of brainwashing, a lot of programming, and a lot of trauma. And I mean, I enjoy the work I did with Andrea early on. That was one of my first, you could call it, counseling sessions that I've had in my life, just because I didn't know I needed it. And since I've talked to other people, and since I've just become more and more stable, but we're in a period, this is what I believe, we're in a period where deprogramming is available to those that will look into these things. I had a Bible verse that I pulled up just the other day, because I sent it to somebody. Let me see, here it is. It's the parable of the lamp, which you probably have heard. I'm going to read it. Luke 8. No one lights a lamp and then covers it with a bowl or hides it under a bed. A lamp is placed on a stand where its light can be seen by all who enter the house. For that is the secret will, oh, for all that is secret. Oh, yeah. Sorry. For all that is secret will eventually be brought into the open, and everything that is concealed will be brought to light and made known to all. So pay attention to how you hear. To those who listen to my teaching, more understanding will be given. But for those who are not listening, even what they think they understand will be taken away from them. And I sent that to obviously a Glober that was flighting with, not a Glober, an anti-flat earther that was opposing me. They were saying that they said, you're satanic, you're a demon. They did cuss words, and then they said, you're going to go to hell because I'm pushing FE, flat earth. And I didn't respond in anger. I didn't even get mad at them. I just feel bad for them because they're so spiraling and they're so clutching, clinging to this ball model, this materialism, and it's the satanic inverted. It's a lie. It's provably a lie. And it's bad because I don't want to traumatize them anymore because they're at the brink of their own trauma. They don't even know it.
Mm.
I want to
Mm.
offer a helping hand and be like, I believed what you believed too, buddy. I was there. Come this way. I've got truths. I've got proofs. Come on. And they don't, I mean, I'm being attacked on Twitter right now, tagged in like hundreds and hundreds of posts a day. They leave my name, Run Boston Bear, on it. And
Oh,
I'm not
wow.
removing it. I think there's a button that you can hit that removes you from like all tags, but right now, I'm being patient. I don't care who tags me. I don't care what you say to me. I'm on the right path and I know it because I'm in the zone. I have peace, I have patience, I have
Awesome.
kindness, goodness, I have self-control. And these aren't figments of my imagination. I haven't like psychotically had an episode where I believe I have more peace. I just have more peace. And if I was on the wrong track that was very displeasing to the creator, I
Mm.
don't think I could be living a joke or living a lie. Like it's real. So I'm gonna keep being me. Thanks for sharing all that you did, though. One thing, if I could say one more thing, it's about my journey with Christianity. Because I always believed if you say the prayer, you're set for your eternal salvation. If you say the prayer is good and you're set. And I've learned a lot about dispensationalism or being a dispensationalist, which says like we live in a current time where grace rules supreme. You can kind of do anything you want, and if you just say, "I'm sorry for where I messed up today," you'll be forgiven. And that confused me. So I've been on a journey of going back to the very beginning, and I'm trying to be as Torah observant as I can. Some people be like, "Oh, you're a Torah observant person," where I'm not eating pork and I'm not eating the shellfish that you're not supposed to eat. I'm basically lining up myself with how did Jesus live his life? What did he do? What did he not do? And how can I do that? Because if I do that, that takes out all the religions, all of them, even Christianity. So
Mm.
it's like reversing time. Like they tell us this Big Bang happened and they can take it back to the singularity. And what I'm trying to do with my own faith is get back to the beginning where God said, "Let there be light." And he spoke everything into existence. Let the waters separate from the waters, and the firmament was formed. Like back then, he had behaviors and he had instructions for the man that he was going to create soon. So Adam and Eve, if you believe in that story or not, basically man had to get here somehow, and now we're all here. We are man, aren't we? Like we are humans. I believe the creator has instructions for us, and all I'm trying to get at personally is what are those instructions? Not all, like, not, oh, you're talking about the law. Jesus did away with the law. Well, I know the Pharisees and Sadducees added on like heaps and heaps and heaps of laws on to be religious and to be controlling. I
Mm.
think that Jesus came to wipe the table clean and say, none of these are his intentions. Let me speak to you, man to man. The creator's intentions are this, and it's simple. And I haven't figured it out yet. I know there are different believing Torah groups, and there some follow the moon for Sabbath, some follow the sun for Sabbath, because I do know that the day of rest is supposed to be Saturday. And I do know that in the beginning there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, and that has repeated indefinitely since the first 7 days. Like we know our
Mm,
calendar's been twisted. Um, so I couldn't debate a single person. Like if a theologian wanted to smash me, they could. I can't debate a scientist or a physicist on biblical cosmology because I don't know the knowledge that they have. But I'm
mm,
not looking for knowledge, I'm looking for truth. And I think why I've come into the movement and moved up quick is because I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I only want to know what the actual truth is, no matter what it is.
mm.
Try not to be ego. I don't like pride and ego. I don't want that to be high. I want the creator to help me be patient as I learn what the truth is. So I hope that helps somebody just for me to voice like I'm not, I'm not an Austin Whitsitt in the in the debate world, and I'm not Sean Griffin. He runs a channel called Kingdom in Context, and he knows a lot about the Bible and the Torah. Um, so I'm just me sitting here right now talking today.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love it. I
I
love it,
love it.
JT, and I appreciate what you had to say there. For me, one of the things that I've always, because we could get into, or I debate with myself about, who wrote this book or who wrote that text and so on, and do we really know, given how much misinformation exists in the world, in which they could create a globe out of a flat,
Hmm.
stationary,
Hmm.
non-moving, set upon pillars Earth that and when we look at who where the placement of the Jews are in the world, if those people are that we call Jews today are the original Jews or the 12 tribes of Israel, if they are these things, there's people who debate to and fro about whether they are, and the Khazarian connection and all sorts of things.
Hmm.
So it's interesting that it's always centered around this sort of Jewish question. And yet, if you were living in the Peru or in the bottom of Africa or whatever, then what's gone on in the Middle East over the last 1,000 years or 2,000 years or whatever would probably have little to no relevance and bearing on your life. And before the advent of the printing press and the ability to kind of share this information, which, one could say, well, God gave us the ability to the brain and technology to create the printing press to share his word, people could say that. But equally, I would say, well, as I've said to many people actually in the streets, and particularly in South Africa when I was doing my sort of field activism there, was that, God wrote the truth on your heart.
Hmm. Hmm.
That we have within us the key to the love, to the connection, to goodness, um, in our heart, and so once you have this sort of roadmap of, or the like I refer to the driving code. Once you have the driving code down, you shouldn't need that if you're going to drive. You're now going to go and experience the road and be on the road and live it and realize that in slippery conditions you're going to do something different than when it's dry. Um, and so we end up getting so caught up in theological debate, really smart people. They've spent eons studying this and they truly believe this and they sound compelling. But there's Muslim teachers and speakers who sound compelling about what they hold dear. But so it creates a confusion, a Babel or a Babel
Yeah.
of voices and noises that, well, this year or this neighborhood or this country or this belief system holds to this one and we hold to this one and so on. And so I do think that, as I used to say to my mom, what if I'd been born in like a poor village in India? What access to this book would I have had?
Hmm.
Save for the Crusades and the Catholic Church going around and burning people who didn't believe what they wanted them to believe. So for me, you know, it has to be an inward relationship with our creator, and then knowing that our journey here is to drive safely and to love the other road users such that we don't want to cause them a crash and cause them problems. And so I that's it's hard for me to debate against someone who wants to hold or believe a certain book or a certain text or whatever. Um, Again, I would say, there's great stuff I can take from that and knowledge. And, a big part of my journey through flat Earth and truth seeking was to spend a lot of time listening to Zen Garcia, Rob Skiba, lots of people who have great insight into biblical understanding and end times prophecies and all of these sorts of things. But I've found that really that you have to be your own. Well, I feel like you have to be your own knower of truth. And I used to do this. You may not have heard me say this, but Noah, as in the flood, is also Noah, as in Knower. And once you've consumed all of this stuff, is a guy who spent 40 years in a monastery studying the Bible backwards and forwards and in every way, any more loved by God than a guy who's kind of gone, okay, I see the message that you've got there. I understand that we are God's creation, and I want to humbly submit to that, and be an emissary of God, But I really resonate with your message, and I really resonate with your energy. I think that it's lovely, wonderful, that innocence, that lack of ego. I highly applaud you for that, and I really wish you well with all of the sort of work that you're doing. It can be exhausting, but I guess if you have the light of God leading the way, or the sword of truth, in your heart, then you will be an awesome warrior for the work that perhaps we're meant to be doing.
I really appreciate those words, brother. I'll get in a minute to see if I can screen share something, but I want to respond because I had some just like I was engaged in listening, but this like formulation of something happened in me. So, you know how you were talking about like basically the scriptures, like the Holy Bible, for example, or any of the other holy books, right? These are all words and text, and words and text written in particular languages can be used as tools for good or tools for bad. And my personal opinion is I think like following the Messiah, I think it used to be called the way. It wasn't grab a Bible and read it front to back and say the prayer and now you're good. It was a way of life. It was a way of living. And like you were talking about, you got the manual to the car, you've read it, you figured it out, you tried it a couple times, and then now you need to go and experience. That resonated with me a lot because I hope people hear me correct when I say this. I'm there's so many translations of the Bible and there's so many interpretations of said Bible from men on what they believe it says. I think the important thing is if the Bible is the way you're going to go, or any text, I think any other religion or any text, read it not to find like to crack the code or to find the clues, like read it ask the creator to show you where's the truth in this, and is this the actual bottom line truth you want me to be at, or do I need to change like more? Because the incorruptible word, you know how it says like the word is incorruptible? I think that that's actually Yeshua. It says that God became flesh, or the word became flesh, and I think the only incorruptible component in this whole story is Yeshua himself, not the Bible that you open up and interpret how you want to. And then my mind kind of went into this next phase where it's like, how is God going to treat all humans that have tried their best to find the truth in their lifetime? Okay, the church is going to tell you, well, if it's not Jesus of the Bible and you saying that prayer, you're going to hell forever and burning forever. Okay, well, I've learned that hell isn't even a place of eternal torment or damnation. Like that's a Catholic passed down doctrine. So I think that people have two choices. They can either accept the free gift of eternal life, or they can be as if they never existed. It's almost like if you choose not to be with the Creator, then it's as if you never existed. It's not this like, oh, you didn't make the right choice in your life. Now you're going to burn forever and ever and ever. This is something that I've learned recently, so I may not have like fluently spoken that. Um, but here's another thought of mine. I'm just throwing them out there. Let's say so and so was born here, raised here, and found like they were a Muslim, and they were born and raised Muslim, and that's their deep faith and understanding. Well, let's just pretend that Yah on high is on the seventh layer of the firmament, and it is the God of the Bible, and Yeshua the Messiah is the only way, truth, and life. If someone else picked a Muslim lifestyle, but in that lifestyle, they picked good over bad or light over dark. And they kind of just merged towards the truth is ultimately what I'm trying to get at. I think at the end of their life, or let's flip the coin if I'm wrong and the Muslims have it just perfect and the Christians are all deceived, okay? This is where the key of my little like thing is. I'm not fearful that I have it wrong. I've made a choice as a man. I've made my choice to walk this one out. And I mean, I don't think it's going to change because I'm already 15 years on this journey and I'm pretty stable. But I think if I got in a horrific car accident and I had 2 seconds to live before my life was ended, I think that the creator can take those 2 seconds, enter into them with you, have a conversation like we're having now, sort out the mess. This is where you got it right. This is where I think you were tricked, or you thought you were right. Let me see this. Explain it all. Like, hey, and at the
Well,
end, I'm saying at the end,
frozen.
at the end of our life, then he'll say, now what do you choose? Do you choose me, or do you not want to be a part of this? And if an atheist or somebody that's just super angry chooses to not want to be with the creator of all things, then they have that free will to say, I'm going away from you. Or they can go towards him. And now I'm not saying all will be saved because I think a lot of people are so traumatized and damaged and angry that they do not want to be with whoever the creator is. Uh, and that may have sounded really crazy to the Christians listening or really crazy to anybody listening, but I'm not worried about what you think about what I'm thinking about.
Yeah,
I'm believing the creator's good,
yeah,
sovereign, holy,
yeah,
wonderful,
yeah.
beyond our ability to understand and isn't gonna like smash us into the ground for one
Hmm.
little misstep in
Hmm.
this short little brief life. I think he's better than that, and I can't wait to see what it is, but I'm not gonna be scared till I meet him. I'm gonna be happy and joyful till I meet him.
It's like I sometimes think I was going to ask you the question of do you think you know because I sometimes you probably heard me say this I think that this life might be a test, well not a test, like a you know, to use the driving analogy, it's like you're going to get to drive out on the motorways or the interstates, as you call them in America, and and you know you might not be ready to like handle the interstate. So you know the next you come back home and you're like, you know what, I didn't really get that interstate thing. I'm going to have to try that again. You know? And so I do wonder whether we aren't sort of in a schooling where if we haven't, because the creator for me is all love, you know,
Mhm.
this embitterment and anger and rage and all this stuff I don't think is how the creator views its creation. So to use the Disneyland analogy that I sometimes throw in, that if you visited Disneyland and you got to go on a ride 100 times, and then at the end of the day you go home and you're like, you know what, I didn't actually try all the rides. I'd like to go back again tomorrow and try some different rides, or they got one of those like whack-a-mole games there, and you're just so angry and you just pounding on that whack-a-mole, and at the end of the day you've broken the machine, you know, and overnight the engineers are going to repair that machine, and you can come back tomorrow, and if you've still got that rage, you can just keep whacking away at that thing, you know. So you know the as I said earlier, I don't think that I can't condone people doing ill upon other people.
Mhm.
Um, Although I have used the term soul dire to be soldier. Are we damaging our soul? Does it mean that for my part in a war, there's going to be a need for me to attend to something on my way out of here? Um, yep, there may well be. I don't fear that. It
Hmm.
may mean that there's there's a like, oh well, you failed the test this time around, but it's no big deal. You've got an infinity to keep coming around. That's on the sort of soul level stuff that I obviously can only think about and imagine rather than can know.
Yeah.
Um, in this world, and on this plane of earth, at this level of God's creation, I do have an ambition, or I do kind of have that Garden of Eden idea that mankind lost his way for whatever reason, and that the long-term plan is for Eden to return to the plane, to this for this place to be that. It may be that I'm just hopelessly naively kind of wanting to put a really you know happy story on the human
Hmm.
experience. Um, and it may be that's meant to be a trial. However, it's the authors of the world wars, of the banking system, of the of all of the so many of the things that make this life extremely challenging that I don't trust. I don't trust the people who get us to go to war with each other. And so therefore it feels to me like there's been a usurpation of God's intention rather than God intended for this to be a hellhole. Maybe this is the hell, but I don't know. So I'm kind of I'm open-minded to about it, but about what happens in the after story as to whether it's just, hey, God gives you that opportunity to reflect and repent and so on, and then go to the upper heaven,
Hmm.
or whether you kind of wash back around and you have another go at it. Um, but it does feel to me like goodness should prevail. Good is God, and goodness should prevail on earth in the fullness of time. But man maybe needs to go through that kind of hell.
Yeah.
I'm not giving the Freemasons and all the people who
Yeah.
arrange things and so on a pass here. I don't I'm not saying, well, nice one, you guys, you needed to arrange these wars and so on so that we would go through the hell. I'm not saying that. But perhaps it's almost like the seven deadly sins have to play out, because without that, we don't kind of we don't get that test. Like I've said many times, you can't be the captain of the ship until you have actually sailed the ship in a stormy sea. And if you stay in a safe harbor, you will never get that opportunity.
Hmm. Well said. Well said. Um, the interesting thing about this whole conversation, honestly, we probably should already be fighting, right? I mean, it's easy. The default, I mean, not you and me because we're friends, but what we're talking about here is there's a lot that we can't know
Yeah.
ever,
Yep.
regardless of what you've studied or how many
Yep.
years you've been in a doctrine.
Yep.
The things that we can't know is what's going to happen after we die. Is it going to be reincarnation? Is it going to be eternal life with the Father above? I mean, I mean, I think the New Jerusalem, which is a 1,500 mile cube city, maybe rose out of here at the fall of man, and it's the Garden of Eden, and it's above the firmament. I think that at a particular time, I mean, this is just what I think that at some point in time, the sky's going to roll back like a scroll, and all are going to see the Messiah returning. And those that are dead in Christ are going to rise up first, and those that are alive are going to rise up next. There are going to be earthquakes on the ground to kind of like level the foundation. It'll get refined by a holy fire, and the New Jerusalem that I think is physically up there now is going to come down and set in the center of this realm, this creation, and it's going to have its own light, and it's going to be Yeshua is going to be the own light. Some people are like, man, really sounds like this guy's gone like sci-fi on us. That absolutely could be the truth of what's coming,
Sure.
or it's just what I hold to possibly be true with my studies. But the point I was making is that's where I am today. You have something else. We probably can't know what's going to happen after we die because
Mm,
we're alive.
mm,
And the same thing happens with the heliocentric model. There's like a parallel. If you look at what they say outer space is and the planets and the sun and the moon and the stars in this realm, science has given us a materialistic view of it. We know the distances, the intensity, like the heat, what it's made up of. They have every single answer you could possibly want, even the 98 or whatever percent dark matter and dark energy that makes the model work, which is like crazy. But if they would just say, there's certain things up there that we can't measure, we can't scientifically measure because we can't go there. Let's figure this thing out. Like they should have gone, I think, in the direction of Tesla and like the stuff that Witset's talking about and the toroidal field and the double torus and all that stuff would have allowed us to have free energy. We wouldn't have to be paying for electricity. I think we should have free food, free water. I think basically life should be more about what you and I are doing now than working the 9 to 5 and grinding your whole life away. It should be connecting. And so I talked about the Sabbath earlier. Like there is supposed to be a day of rest where every human puts down what they do for their livelihood and connects over food, praises the creator, connects, chills, relax, like psychologically and emotionally and spiritually. If there was a day of rest, and I'm not meaning Sunday, go to church, uh, that was something I think that was stolen from us. But let me know when you want to transition to a few screen share. You can respond for sure, but I want to show you a couple things too.
yeah, let's go into some screen share. But I do resonate with the 7 days, and on the seventh day you rest. It's hard for me to know which day of the week that is. Some people say Saturn day or Saturday. Day of Saturn is the Lord of the Rings and constriction and so on. But we have 7 chakras. We have
Hmm.
7 cycles to a wave. We have 7 notes in an octave, and on the eighth you rest, or maybe on the seventh you rest.
Hmm.
So um, we the seventh chakra is like the heaven, the corona chakra, and so that kind of speaks to me. Now, I was, one of my 2016 sort of missions, or 2015-16 missions, was to be like Jesus, to become the carpenter. And I was also very keen, though, working physically very hard to rest myself one day of the week. I think that's important, but the body needs to be worked physically. But yeah, in the seventh you rest. But we have 3 Abrahamic religions, and they choose the Friday, the Saturday, and the Sunday. So as their day of rest and prayer and so on, and feasts or whatever. So and I also went through the kind of stay away from the shellfish and the pork and so on. And I'm still in two minds about it. Although I do eat pork occasionally, I am still in two minds about that. It's not. I can't say for sure that I should or shouldn't, but I admire you for avoiding those bottom feeders.
Hmm.
Um, even if it's just the toxins that those meats carry. It is
Hmm.
of course, there's others in the sort of non-meat community who will say that any meat consumption is altering your vibration such that you are not fit for God's throne or whatever. So again, it's one of those things that it's difficult to know what the right answer is, but pray on it, and you go with what feels right. And I guess when you look at these arguments from a top-down view over what you should and shouldn't do in this community, and you've got to circumcise the boy, and you've got to do this, and you've got to do that. When you look down on them, it's like, are these the machinations of man? um, you know, or as you said, how did Jesus live? Or what's the example as set out by Jesus? And I guess if you can try and match that, and then it comes back to this light, that we are light, we carry the vibration of God's essence who breathed us in the air. We were talking right at the beginning of this conversation, this call, well, about ether and the breath of life being God. I think maybe perhaps before you joined the call, we were talking about ether and the connection to that. And when Andrea was giving birth to Alexander, he was long time. It was a long birth process, and she was sort of going in and out of focus. And she just had this song going through her mind all the time. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. And I think that that's what we are. We are the light of God, and so the things that we do in this lifetime either dull that light, or the things that are done to us either dull that light, or like you see with your innocent children, the light is bright, and
Hmm.
then this world is going to put shade cloth on that and try and dim that down and reduce that in the course of the light. And we've all had that done to us. I think none of us is or few of us are exempt of that in one way or another. And so the mission of this life is to perhaps simply return to that innocence of love and I don't want to sound too new age, but to be the light again, and to be that light in a dark room.
Hmm.
And that's really all that God could surely ask for. And so one can be, I can imagine God, if God needs to forgive me of anything, including, what I ate along the way, it'd be like, well, you know what? There was so much misinformation. I did the best I could. I cleaned my water, and I tried to find clean food that wasn't toxified by GMOs and all of that kind of thing. And so maybe, because it comes back to this, like, okay, so there's this one book written by these guys in this tiny part of the world, and they said that if you don't do it like this, for me, um, God, if it was so important to God, then he would have taken a light aircraft or a drone and flown over the whole world and leafleted everybody and given them a message that they could understand in their language, that wouldn't be held by a tiny clique, whether it
Hmm.
be the Catholic Church or whoever, that it would be held by a tiny clique for them to disseminate over the centuries. And only in the last few centuries has that dissemination been arguably been total over the whole earth. So if I was in a place in which there was a certain kind of food stuff, whether it be fruit, meat, or honey or whatever, if there was a certain kind of food stuff and that nourished me and my family, then that would be naturally what I would be called to consume, it
Hmm.
seems to me. But
Hmm.
that having been said, unless you wanted to say anything else, why don't you show me the screen share?
Oh
Was it
yeah.
to do with the solar eclipse?
Oh, for sure. A little response would be just like you said, be the light, people. If you're vibrating and like if you're resonating out energy of peace and joy and goodness, and you're slow to anger, and you listen to what another person says, even if it's different than what you think, try to ask yourself, are they trying to attack me? Because you don't have to get defensive if they're just sharing with you what they think, because we're all trying to figure it out. And I think that the evil ones of the world have kind of like taken this whole idea of we can't know what happens after death and we can't know certain things about the universe. That was uncomfortable for them. So it's like a two-sided coin where one, now they have something to have complete faith in, materialism and
Mm.
like naturalism or whatever. And the other side is we can control the people better. So regardless of if you liked or didn't like anything Dave and I said about faith, God, religion, the creator, the afterlife, uh, that's okay if you didn't like it. We were just having fun talking about what could be or what could not be. But just go in peace.
While you're
Yeah,
doing that, thank
yeah.
you. While you're doing that, a quick shout out to the chat. Just starting at the bottom, I see Festivus, who is another Nathan. He's the pilot that I actually was talking about earlier, and he hopefully I will get him to show his face someday, or at least come and have a conversation about. He says powerful conversation. Um, Sinjman, I see Alva Billy there. Nice to see you at my three wishes moment. I wish for clarity, thinking I won't need more than one wish. So far, so good. Clarity is good. Memorial Gardens, or used to be known as National Memorial Gardens, Nathan and Penny, lovely to see you. Thanks for your ongoing support in the chat. Dean HD still hanging in there, nice one. Say hello to Sarah for us. Four Jacks, lovely to see you. Thanks for coming in. Love, peace, everybody, wisdom be with you all. And in the end, we will be wise. Glenn Williams. Um, yeah, Ian, nice to see you there. So that's kind of got me a little bit caught up. I can't obviously read it all now. Jason Starr. Uh, oh, 2018 was my accident. I was in fear to be thought I was going to die, and not even the doctors would help. I knew this is all up to me. That's one. Okay. Did you want to, oh, I need to let you share screen. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I was just Googling how for you to enable it because right now when I hit cl oh, there we go. You're good. I'm just gonna do my desktop. I don't know in what order I'm gonna throw this out there. Let me know when you can see it.
I can see you.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'm gonna pull up my photos. I just read this to y'all, the Luke Cake thing. The eclipse, we went and got ready to do that with the family. We had people were like setting up, some serious like this guy had like a serious rig, Uh,
Wow.
and this rig right here kind of reminds me of Joe Hamby's. He's a believer both in the Messiah and biblical cosmology, and Joe Hamby is more about um, experiments and research. Like he's somebody to follow. I can drop his links in the chat because very interesting guy that thinks kind of outside the box. There was a Tesla charging station, and there was a line of like 9 Teslas when we first got there coming in for the event, and they were all trying to get the juice. They needed the juice, which is funny. This isn't
What is
where
that big car that was at the back of that queue
this
there?
is the new Tesla Cybertruck.
Oh, wow.
First time for me to see it in person, and I was like,
Oh.
wow. Um, and we hung out, and I got some images that I'll show you. I'll actually go to my video in a second. A friend of mine named Stone, he wrote this still, Rahu and Ketu, and he shows exactly how they kind of line up and move. Um,
Okay, just hold on that image for a little while,
yeah,
please,
yep.
JT, because I'm fascinated by the Rahu and Ketu nodes, which, uh, the point, what he's saying, points of intersection in the sky. I mean, for me, Rahu and Ketu have to be, and according to Andrea's research, they're on an 18-year circuit.
Mm,
They're also moving. They're not fixed points in the sky, but they're moving too. And so they're always in different positions, which is why the eclipses happen in different parts of the world. There's normally 2 solar and 2 lunar eclipses per year, but there could be 5, 6, or 7 total, eclipses if you count both the lunar and the solar. Um, and I believe that these are, and as you will probably attest, everything was moving. Both the sun was moving and the void or whatever it is that's coming in front of the sun. It's not like it's just one point and the sun travels through that. Both of them are kind of moving, but one's moving faster.
hmm
Yeah.
That's interesting. Um, he Man of Stone also made this image. He goes by Stone. So this red line and this pink line is the actual prescribed in perfect like mileage or to scale. The pink and the red is how far the shadow should have been, but NASA showed an image of a much too big shadow.
Ah, so
And
that's
so
the top down looking onto the Earth.
yeah, he added all the text and all the lines, but he took a screenshot of what they showed us the shadow look like from the International
Uh-huh.
Space Station. And
Uh-huh.
then he figured out, I don't know how exactly wide it would have been or should have been, but the shadow was too big. So he's always trying to like find where they're being goofy, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay. Okay.
Um, And then before I came on my trip, I was packing. I got my Dave Weiss, my Blue Dot cards to drop in a few different places. Uh,
Awesome.
let's see, what was I going to show you? I told you it's going to be random. Also, the little cards that have different people's information on there. I left those in the seat back for people to start getting some info
Oh,
there.
that's cool. That's
Uh,
cool.
this is the Boston Marathon. These are the majors. So there's six majors. The Berlin Marathon, Boston, Chicago, New York is down here. TCS. Which one is this one? I don't know. In Tokyo. And these are the elevation profiles. So I'm going to start tomorrow at 10 a.m. up in Hopkinton. And they take us a school bus, all like a yellow school bus, all the way out to the start. It takes an hour. And then I run straight back to Boston. So you drop. This pounds your quads. Every one of these downs just pounds your quads. This kills. And then this is like mile 16. You start the Newton Hill. So there's one hill, two. This actually to me is the hardest hill on the course because it's the steepest.
Uh-huh.
And then you dip in and this heartbreak hill, it's mile 21, and then you bop down. And actually these last miles are pretty tough too, but that's what I'll be doing tomorrow.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Can I just pause you there? I think one of
Sure.
the best flat Earth evidences is if you take a cycle route across the United States and continental North America, and you get that exact same flat baseline where you start at the Boston side or the New York side, and you
Hmm.
end up in Los Angeles, and you go up and up and up, and you come down and up and down in Colorado, and then you end up back in San Diego or wherever, and you're back at sea level, and everything at the baseline is flat. All it's done is gone topography up and down to a baseline that is flat.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Um,
You can get cycle routes and things like that that are very long, thousands of miles long, obviously.
right. Let me find, I thought I had favorites. Yeah, favorites. Where's that at? Here. One interesting thing about yesterday, well, Joe Hanvey, he put this is just one of Joe Hanvey's posts. So he has this image down here that he took personally from a plane. He goes up in a plane quite often. So you see this intense hot spot over the clouds and this orb of the sun. And
Hmm.
and then he shows this, heliocentric tiny ball Earth with all this and the text really resonated with me. The lie they forced on us from birth versus what we actually observe. Be completely honest with yourself. Is the sun in the real picture, my personal pick, 92 to 96 million miles away and capable of fitting 1.3 million Earths inside of it? Your eyes aren't lying to you. The God of this world is. Because, like, if this is all the Earth, and I know they're going to say that that's still somehow 96, million miles away. But the reason why I'm showing you this right now is uh, so you heard the story. Kevin got in the car. I told him about biblical cosmology. He was cool with it. We got to the Invisalign girl. That's a pilot. That's also a flat earther. And then we got on the plane and we flew. And I was jacking around. He was watching a movie, but he raised the shutter just in time to catch the sun going down. And it's almost like the creator gave me the same thing Joe saw.
Wow.
It's just,
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
it's interesting to me.
See, now I've seen that myself as well from a plane. And if you heard me say I was leaving Dubai one year, and then I think I said this to you the other day, I said to the chat that I was leaving Dubai one year and the sun had set before plane took off. And then once we got up into the sky,
Hmm.
the sun was well up in the sky above the clouds again. And so that's one of the conundrums I have with exactly how the sun works. And I'm not claiming that we will necessarily ever know how it works.
Hmm.
However, those images that you show of the sun being above the clouds like that, you could go, let's say, further east. I know if you're already over in Boston, you are quite far east, but you could go further east and be on the ground and see people who are seeing the sun below the clouds starting to set, even
Hmm.
though you can see it up there. So like we're in Dubai, where people who were still on the ground were seeing or had seen the sun descend below the clouds and go set, I was seeing the sun again above the clouds, and so how is that a singular
Right.
physical object rather than it's a somehow incredibly, giving me a light show that's relevant to me because of my position in altitude or east or west.
Yeah. Shane St. Pierre and the boys at Ether Cosmology, Toby, Allen, they've really been digging into this azimuthal grid of vision, like the limit to our vision. And the sun, the apparent sun, the orb, the disk of the sun and the moon and the stars, they're very, very personal. The position of them is very personal to where you're at on the plane
Yeah,
because we have vision and we have perspective. And like if I'm in Texas and somebody is in Florida or California, where the sun is going to appear to them is going to be slightly different, not because it's not, see, this is what's so crazy. We're told it's 94 million miles away, and California, Texas, and Florida would just be looking at a very far away sun, basically an infinitely far away sun, and we would be looking at the same orb. But in reality, it is much closer, and that's why whenever the sun is coming up first light, you can see it directly, but you don't feel much heat. And as the day goes on and it comes over top of you or it's closer to you, it's just blasting heat and then it cools off and goes away. It's because it's closer. Same thing with the seasons when it's running the circuits between, Cancer and Capricorn. It literally is giving winter and summer to different areas of the whole plane.
sure.
Um, but just that idea of it being personal to us, I don't know why it triggers anti-flat earthers so hard. They think that the azimuthal grid of vision is like, I don't know if they can't understand it because, like, say that on camera, like if this is a person's personal limit to their vision, there's still the firmament. There's still the whole like firm, like looking glass firmament that gives us our pressure that's physical up there, or I'd say spiritual up there. This dome, our how we view the sun is just apparent. It's not, you can't go and touch it. It's just where these things are presenting themselves to us by where we're geographically located. And then they say, nuh-uh, you're deceived, you're demonic, you're a fool, that doesn't make any sense, you're stupid. And I'm saying, yeah, but if it's reality and if it's the truth, we need to look into it.
Yeah. And the thing is that as you move, then the lights seem to move away from you or with you, so it's always recentering itself on your position. And again, you can do the example of you stand at the bottom of a skyscraper, and your friend can go to the top of the skyscraper and then make observations.
Mhm.
You could imagine that that's both of you, that's two versions of yourself. One is looking up, one is up there, and one is down here and looking at the same thing at the same time and getting a very different sunset time, very different experience of the lights
Mhm.
above you.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's amazing, and it's even made me wonder whether we aren't somehow involved in the projection show, that it's actually your own light show that you're sort of involved in.
yeah.
I'll leave
One
that for now.
one interesting thing about this grid of vision is to any point on this perspective dome is 3959. And that's concerning the luminary. So sun, moon, stars, wandering stars, 3950 away. And that happens to be the radius of the Earth also. And that's how the trick works, because with celestial navigation and all the numbers and all the math, it's equivalent there's like a dynamic and kinematic equivalent over a plane Earth and a globe. So like if you have a globe and all this, all this stuff is out there super, super far, and you have a globe that's moving, that's going to be what makes all this stuff look like it's moving. Or you have a plain Earth and all this stuff is physically moving, but it's presenting itself to you on an azimuthal grid that you can move around. So
Mm,
like it really tripped me out. I forget the term of it. Like if two people are standing side by side like this, and each of them goes 69 miles apart from each other, the luminaries in the sky will go 1 degree in towards each other for each observer. It's like basically they're saying that the people go 69 miles apart each. They're going around 1 degree curve of Earth. But what I'm saying is if they're on a plane Earth, you're going to get the exact same thing in the sky because of optics, not because of Earth curve.
The
And
example, yeah, the example I use for that, JT, is that when you say take a hot air balloon or a street lamp that's really tall, if you stand underneath it, you're going to have to look directly up to see it. But for
hmm
every step you take away, so it's going to slowly descend on your horizon
hmm
into eventually a point where you can't even see. Because over the United States on a Sunday, I bet there's 500, maybe even 1,000 hot air balloons in the sky right now.
Yeah,
You can't see any of them unless you're within 50 miles of them, maybe 100 miles possibly on a clear day. And that's
absolutely.
simply because they've descended below your visible horizon.
hmm and if anybody ever goes to just adl.place, adl.place, it's going to blow up Shane's like whole like link tree. And he has a database. And if you go into the database, you have, gyroscopes and laser tests, globe deception timeline. I mean, he has tons and tons and tons of information, stellar parallax, geocentrism. You can blow these up and read this.
Okay.
What we're talking about right now, 69 miles per degree. Uh, the resource here that Shane's put together is amazing. It goes into everything that we're talking about.
Okay.
A lot of it's really in depth if people like getting into the science of things. Um, because what he's found is the celestial sphere of the globe and the azimuthal grid of vision and just how they correlate to each other. He can calculate to the eighth decimal place with accuracy, which that's what they've always said is where's your model? Now we don't see this is the crazy thing. If you're talking about the basically when we look up into the heavens, the puzzle piece of the sky is we know it's known to all, it's been there the whole time for thousands of years. The puzzle piece that's missing is the ground, and so they've done this like latitude longitude deal. What's actually it's on my channel. I have a latitude longitude video that he made up where the king at the time required any map making to fall into the parameters of longitude and latitude, like the system. So any map you see, even our beloved, equidistance or the flat Earth map, is still a globe projection. So what
Yeah.
I'm saying is we know the sky. What we don't know is the exact distances of especially things in the south. So we don't know the shape and size of our realm, but it's fun to try to look into it. And when people say you're stupid for not being able to hand them a model, like we're just starting. Like they've had billions of dollars and hundreds of years to perfect the inversion. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
I want to show you something.
Yeah, do it. Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's the equator in the middle, and at the bottom is Capricorn, and at
Mm-hmm.
the top is Cancer. Now, what I was saying to you on your live stream the other day is that the week preceding for the week preceding I'll show that again. Obviously, everybody knows that we have it doesn't matter whether you're on a globe or a flat Earth. We know that the sun moves between Capricorn and Cancer over the course of 6 months, and gives us our summer and our winter time. Uh, Now, the Capricorn is what we call south of the equator, and the moon was in that position. So imagine in your mind, you're thinking about the winter sun. Where is the winter sun in your world? Well, it's low on the sky. If you're in the sun, if you're in the northern hemisphere plane, it's low on the sky, and it's kind of doing this little circuit low on the sky out there, right? In the summertime, well, it's up in Cancer, and it's almost, I mean, for you guys down in Texas, it's kind of almost directly above you, right? That's the Cancer position. Now, the moon in the week preceding the eclipse was all the way down in Capricorn. And this anybody could observe if they were watching the moon. It's all the way down in the, say, wintertime position for the north. Now, 2, 3 days ago was the first time I got to see the new moon since the eclipse, and
Mm-hmm.
it's all the way up in Cancer.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, I've only just learned this recently, although for years I've been going, but the moon is jumping all over the place all the time, and I couldn't see a pattern to it. But Andrea started listening to somebody the other day who's deep into astrology, but from a flat Earth point of view, which is she's really excited about that. And she was saying, well, the moon is doing that whole summer to winter, i.e., Cancer to Capricorn. It's doing that cycle each month rather than once a year like the sun does, right?
Oh,
So,
wow.
so what's happened is, and that was my observation, is that I've been watching the moon from, and I'm pointing out there because of the property I'm at the moment. It was all the way in the week preceding up until obviously you can't see it a day, 2 days or so before the new moon. Okay. However, I can say for certain that it was there for the week preceding the eclipse, and now 3 or 4 days after the eclipse, it's all the way up in the very summertime or Cancer position,
Mm-hmm.
meaning this is the important part, meaning that the moon has transitioned over the line of the sun. And you having seen the sun and seen the eclipse, it is transitioned from. Now I know you were watching it at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, your time. So you were looking south, but following it, tracking it towards the west.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm obviously going backwards. It's left is right and right is left on the camera, but you're tracking it towards the left as it's moving through the sky, right? But the object occluding it was coming from the right and up. Yes,
It came from my right and it went from my right to left.
exactly. But for the moon to be coming from Capricorn to Cancer, it has to have been coming this way from left to right. If it was indeed the moon transiting in front of the sun, and
Mm-hmm.
it's on a course that is acknowledged that it's over there in Capricorn and now it's moving over to Cancer, it has to have been coming left to right to make that journey.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot have been going right to left to make that journey. So it absolutely kills. I've been interested to know if your friend Pierre, the guy who you just referenced, he's a friend of yours, if he's thought about that. Because it's only struck me in the last couple of days. I'm like, okay, so if it's traveling up the scale from Capricorn to Cancer, it's traveling left to right.
Mm-hmm.
But the transit of the moon was right to left. Sorry, let me say that again. The transit of the eclipsing object was right to left,
Yeah.
which is completely opposite to the travel of the moon, which is obviously going left to right because it was there in the left field. Now it's moved to the right field. Because imagine you're looking to the west, then the moon has been all the way over to the left in the week preceding. Now the new moon is all the way over to the right. In order to make that journey, you have to move left to right. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, it should have been moving left to right over the sun and
Mm-hmm.
not right to left, is what you observed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's big. That's a
That is
big
big.
thing. I'll be interested to know if anyone else has made that connection yet.
I've got that wants me to leapfrog into one of my points I was going to make on the call. I'm going to share screen again just so you can see. Let me know when you can see. This is just like the moon. I can't see the date. Let me drop this down. Can you see the date at the top? I can't read it.
August 13th,
Okay.
2022.
So I took this picture and then what's the date?
August 15th.
Okay, so here to here it moved that much up. And then the
Yeah.
next time I looked, and the next time I actually did a video on that one, but
Okay.
the next time I looked, it was this date, not much longer, way up there, right? And
Would you consider that to be almost where the sun would be in the summertime?
I mean, I was just tracking the moon.
No, but
Um,
you see, the moon and the sun
oh,
use the
no,
same kind of tracks, if you like.
right.
So
The the sun rises behind me and sets about where I'm looking.
okay, okay, but in the summertime, the sun is going to look where it sort of in the middle of the day. In the middle of the day, it's going to be 85 degrees off, off the perpendicular. It's going to be 5 degrees off perpendicular for you, something like that. It's only going to be a few degrees off perpendicular. It's going to be really up high in the sky. But in the wintertime, it's going to be really low in the sky like
That's
this.
what it does. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
So the moon is in doing the same thing.
Oh yeah.
The moon is, so those photos of yours evidence that the moon is sometimes down here and then sometimes it's up here, but eventually it'll get into this position.
Yep.
And then it'll do that again and it'll go back down, but it's doing that in the month rather than over the course of 6 months.
I'm gonna see if Stone will make a video. He really, really gets into all of this stuff on a deep level. So let me I'll send you the link to the video if he ends up making it because he likes that kind of stuff. The way you're going with the conversation. So we ended up these are just screenshots from my video, just showing some sunspots, whatever those things are with my P1000. I noticed like at a particular time when it's being eclipsed, there's no lens flares at all, but when it gets tighter, I get those lens flare effects. I pulled up let me see where I did that. I thought I had my videos up. Hold on.
And do you notice that same lens flare with a quarter moon or the eighth moon, if you've ever looked at it?
I think, oh, it's under movies, and then it's under final, and then it's the longer one, probably here. Yeah, so I condensed my footage. So this is footage like you watched my live stream from my phone, and I showed the LCD screen. This is going to show you a little bit of the actual. I think 20 minutes. Hold on. 20 minutes from I was gonna mute that. So I was facing south, and then so it was moving from my
left to right.
my left to right, and the thing was entering in from right to left from the west.
That's right, and that's what I'm saying. That the moon. I mean, one could argue against me and say, look, that's the moon, and the moon's just not moving as quickly as the sun. But it did seem like that object was actually moving left to right as well as the sun was moving right to left.
Well, so personally speaking, I had to move my camera pretty quickly over. Oops, sorry, that's going. I'm ruining
Boom!
it.
That was the moment. Is that when you took the lens covers off?
Yeah, that's when I took the solar filter off. I'll show you in a second. So I had to pretty quickly angle my camera this way to keep up with it.
Yes.
But what's weird is if the object was, well, it just depends because if the object was moving against it, wouldn't it be quick, like super quick or quicker?
Yeah, or that they're both moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
But one is moving more slowly or more quickly than the other, because it would seem like that possibility.
It'd be hard to figure out if the sun was moving quicker. I'm gonna grab my battery. I gotta plug my computer in, but I'm gonna let this play real quick with the volume on. This is the moment of it going total and me pulling the solar filter off.
My little boy was watching at the same time, by the way. So we were all very excited to watch this.
And it's kind of in the clouds though, y'all. It's in the clouds. It's getting super dark.
It's amazing how it went dark only in that last fragment of it.
Oh my gosh. We take the lens off.
Boom.
Look at that. Look at that. Fuck yeah. Whoa! Whoa! Here, look at this.
Wow. Stunning.
Oh, that's not as pretty as it could be. I mean, my eyes. Hey, just look at it with your regular eyes.
Yeah, he's telling his children to dump the special glasses because you can look at that, right?
It's gonna be like this for a minute. There's clouds running by. Sorry about this, guys. Okay. There we go. Okay, did you ask me a question? I was like away.
No. I remember you saying that you can look at it directly. It was you didn't need to be that. It wasn't. it wasn't bright enough to hurt your eyes
Oh,
like
it
that.
didn't hurt. No, it didn't hurt at all. It didn't hurt at all.
I
As
know
I
you
was,
do sun gazing now anyway.
yeah,
I recommend.
as I was looking at this, there were these weird, people call them solar flares, but I'm trying to make it go slow. Here, I'm just gonna let it play because they looked to me like they were static. What are those?
Yeah, I see that. What those little what look like little
Thanks.
triangles coming off.
Those up. I'm gonna mute it and kind of use fast forward a little bit so you can see like it's sliding. If it'll let me. Oh, it won't let me. Yeah, it might. So it's cruising along, and whatever those things are, they're not like whipping like fire. It'll show itself. And you see that one on the right? It looks like a
Yeah,
spin. I'm gonna go back. Whatever that thing is static because seconds are going by and it's not even moving. But here's something I want you to notice. So whenever the sun starts popping back out, and this is what Crow 777 was really excited about. When it started to pop back out, I left my filter off, and it does this weird ring, like the moon that I showed you earlier. So check this out. Okay, so it's popping out the light, and it does this almost hallucinating effect of you can see the clouds and you can see the orb, whatever it is, in a different way than just black.
yeah.
But anyway, this was really fun footage.
Wow. Wow. That's meant to be like the like a diamond ring or something. Like I've heard people talk about it before. Like there's this, yeah,
Hmm.
it's almost like a little jewel is coming out the side of a
Hmm.
ring.
Yeah. And then the postulation or the hypothesis, the thing I wanted to ask you about with this and what you were saying earlier about the moon and its motion is this right here. So I was in Texas, path to totality, and I just want you to notate where the red mark is right here.
Yes. Hmm.
And then there was somebody that I found from Ohio, and his was more left instead of being over here. And
Hmm.
I think I saw another one. This image is not one that I took.
Hmm.
Where's the really fancy one? Maybe look under here. There was like a really, really fancy one somewhere. Okay, Ohio. Here it is. This guy has like the same one and the spoon. I call it the spoon. And he
Hmm.
was able to get a lot more detail. I imagine it was and to me, this looks like there's some kind of energetic force going between these two.
Hmm.
Electromagnetic, maybe. But anyway, the thought that I'm having between this Ohio guy and me is and other people. I want to see other people that were on the path to totality, and I want to see where the mark was for me, where was it for Ohio, because how could something as big as that move that quickly if it's just making one pass up the United States? Like I want to know because like if in the heliocentric model, this flare, like multiple Earths could fit in that.
Yes.
And if it moved that much, what I'm getting at is I think it's optical that it's moved, not that it is moving.
Okay. Well, this is something that I've disagreed with flat earthers on not vehemently, but I've disagreed with flat earthers. There's a very, very well-known flat earther called Dave Marsh from the early days. I don't know if he's still making content, but he was one of the best photographers and he spent a lot of time on that. But so I started noticing years ago that the moon is rolling like this in the sky. So I can almost, if it's a quarter moon or a
Hmm.
half moon or whatever, even a
Hmm.
full moon, I can almost to within about 1,000 miles, I can tell you where that photograph has been taken just by looking at the moon, its
Yeah.
position, because it's turning like this, starting in Australia and taking 24 hours to move all the way across the earth to Hawaii or whatever. So what I see of the moon when in England is, yeah, I mean I can't see the if it's easier if it's either a crescent moon or
Hmm.
you can see the whole of the moon. So you can see those like those dark spots that I call the eyes and the
Yeah.
mouth. This
Yeah.
bit coming off of the right hand side is part of what I call the dragon's mouth, and
Hmm.
just there, occulted in the dark above it, at about the 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock position is the eye above it.
Hmm.
Now, I can see that eye from about the 12 o'clock position, if I see it early in the morning, to all the way to like about the 6 o'clock position. So I see that turn like this.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I would see. Now, if you ask an Australian, if you Google photos of the moon from Australia, they would not see that. They would
Mhm.
see it more from like the 9 o'clock position or the 8 o'clock position, rolling up to the midday position. And then the Americans, they will see the later part of that rotation. And so they will see it beyond the 6 o'clock position that I can see here in England. Now, people who believe in the gyroscope as it proves the globe, people believe that the theodolite proves curvature, and people in photography believe that the what they call the equatorial mount is
Hmm.
required to account for what is perspective. Now, if I took this image here, if I took this thing here and moved it across the screen like this,
Hmm.
it's not going to change its position. The only way that's going to happen is if I actually roll it like this. And I believe that the moon is rolling like this once a day. It moves at about half the speed of the hour hand of your clock.
Yeah.
And if you catch it for enough time, 6 or 8 hours, then
Hmm.
you're able to observe and photograph that. But people will say it's simply because it's over here now. When you took the first photo, it's over there now. And so it's done this turning. Now,
I've
the same applies, JT, to the sun. The
mm.
sun is turning, and you, having done some sun gazing, may have started to notice that actually the sun does this rotation. So, seeing those photographs from Ohio, sorry, from did you say Idaho? Um, the other ones from Idaho is really fascinating to me because it might give us an opportunity to suggest rather than is it that simply the image has rotated because you've taken the photograph from further away, or actually that it's over this turn. Because if you know the time of your photo and the time of his photo, and you can measure that, then it gives you a speed of rotation of the sun. Now,
Well,
the reason I think that this is important is because we are in a torus
hmm.
system. We're in a
Hmm.
torus and everything is turning in the torus system. And that means that just like the water going down the drain, that the sun is a turning, it is a turning system. Now, you may have heard me say this, others may have heard me say this, that because I was a moon observer of this rotation, that when I went to South Africa in 2021, I was very keen to make the same observation. And guess what? It's going this way when you're in South Africa. It's
Nice.
rotating counterclockwise. So how do I explain that? But because I'm looking up at something or at something on a wall that for someone standing on this side of the wall, they're going
Mhm.
to see it as a clockwise rotation. Someone standing this side is going to see it as a counterclockwise rotation.
Right.
So that's why it was fascinating to me because that photograph was obviously taken a couple of hours
Yeah.
after yours. I assume you saw it first. Idaho would have seen it after
Well,
you a couple of hours.
my question, which may be a dumb one, is the path. The path of totality was a very small minute by minute moment. How for Texas did he have the same prominences? How much longer was his path of totality? When did it happen? You know what I'm saying? And how did it have the same little flares and things popping out? Um,
Well, the path of totality was traveling at a certain speed across the
yeah,
country, right?
from bottom to up.
Yeah. So you guys saw it first, but before you, people in Mexico saw it, right? And
Hmm.
it would have been earlier for them by half an hour or an hour.
But hold on just a second, because, well, this is weird because if the sun is 94 million miles away and it was just Texas to Idaho, there wouldn't be a difference in angle. Now, they may say he had his camera angled wrong or different.
Yeah, I mean that no, I mean if he's taking an up and down shot,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
there's to me anyway. Obviously, I'm not arguing for the globe,
yeah.
but to me that if you've got observers, and I use the example of the moon, if you said to an observer at 9 o'clock tonight, you take a photograph of the moon, you're obviously going to align it straight up and point it at the moon. And
Mm-hmm.
at 9 o'clock tonight, I'm 1,000 miles west of you. I'm going
Yeah,
to take at my 9 o'clock, not
yeah,
your 9 o'clock. At
yeah.
my 9 o'clock, when it gets to me, I'm going to take a photo. I've thought about this as an experiment for Flat Earth. Is that if you've got people over, say, 12 time zones or 12 thousand miles or whatever, to all take a photograph at the same time in their time. So 9 p.m. for you, 9 p.m. for them, 9 p.m. for the next guy, 9 p.m. for the next guy, and all take a photograph of the moon. You would see it in every iteration of this transit or this rotation that I'm talking about. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
because I've had to angle my camera left or right or whatever. I'm taking it at 9 o'clock when it's almost directly overhead for me. Let's just say we're, we're a few days away from the full moon. So at 9 p.m., it's almost directly above my head.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or if you waited to midnight and everybody did it at full moon, then it would have to be midnight for everybody. But I think with the solar eclipse, and I might be mistaken on this, but with the solar eclipse, it wasn't like it was happening. See where it was 2 p.m. for you at the time of the totality, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, it would have been later in the day for people in Idaho.
Yeah, they were
And
waiting for it.
huh?
They were waiting for it to get to them.
Yeah, that's right. And before it got to you guys, it was about, I believe in Mexico, but I might be off on that.
Yeah.
And so those people would have seen it half an hour, perhaps before you, because obviously we all understand that the sun creeps across the sky
Mm-hmm.
at 15 degrees an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's so it would be fascinating to see if Mexicans or people in Mexico had taken a photo and found that same peak, but they would have found it nearer the 12 o'clock position or the 1 o'clock position. And that would indicate to me anyway that
Mm-hmm.
no, I mean, no one is not sorry to say no one, but people are going to put their camera straight up at pointing it as you had it quite straight. You had to get it up quite an
Yeah.
angle.
Yeah.
But people would point their camera at that. I mean, they're not going to do that. But even if they did that, it would still
Mhm.
be a case of you can align that with the eclipsing and everything.
Right, right.
So,
This image, the image I brought up aligns with what we've been talking about because this is one night. So the one I have up now is September 12th at about almost 10 at night before like I
uh-huh.
went to bed. The next morning on the 16th, because the image I'm showing you is from, I'm sorry. Um, oh yeah, yeah. The image I'm showing you is from September 12th. This
Yep.
image is from September 13th, but it's only
Yeah,
been 8 hours. And if you look where my mouse is down here at the bottom, that point is called Copernicus, isn't it? No,
I
the
think so.
crater. I
Yeah.
don't know. This point. Well,
Yeah.
so now this point is here, and if you draw a line from here to this bright spot over here, this is the angle, and going back, here it is, and this is just one night.
Uh-huh.
And so what I'm saying is, and I was looking into the east, and I took the picture. I went to bed, and then I just looked totally west, and it had moved that much for me. And the whole thing is it optical? Is it actually pinwheeling? And we could, we kind of have our stances. But what I want to know is, well, in the morning at 6:16, it was going away out of my grid of vision. I want to know the next person down the line, 77,000 something miles away, it would begin to rise for him. I want to compare the rotation that I'm seeing it leave and the rotation that they're seeing
Yes.
it come up. I want to see if they line up or if they're
Yes.
wonky. That'd be a fun experiment.
That would be an interesting one. I think I have this theory about the dateline and that actually it might be the case that the land of the rising sun is the place where the sun emanates from on its new day's journey across the plain. And but what you can do is if you just Google images of the moon, you can almost start to learn or read where they were taken on the Earth, whether it was an Australian shot, whether it was because the southern hemisphere is inverted, it's back to front, and going in a counterclockwise way. But the crescent moon for you will look like this, but for them it looks like this on the same night. People say, oh, you can explain that from standing on a tiny marble and looking at something from upside down and all that sort of thing. This is what explains that. But we're trying to work this out from a flat Earth perspective. Um, and so that crescent moon, you know, the Steven Spielberg DreamWorks logo, where the little boy is sitting fishing off the moon. Not everybody on the Earth sees that. Some people see it like this. Others see it like this. It has nothing to do with it being either in the left sky or the right sky. It has to do with their position on the plane. Yeah. And as I say, it's in a constant state of rolling as it moves over the plane. And that's what you will observe. If you're able to catch catch it in the say late afternoon, because that's when you will catch it in your eastern sky, is in the certainly after the first let me get this right. Sorry, in the western sky, you after the sort of 3 days of the new moon, you will be able to see it leaving you in the western sky. And then every day, about 13 degrees over every hour. It's kind of 15 degrees every hour. It's getting further and further into the sky. And back in the day when I had my own home, I would watch it all the way until like 10 or 11 in the morning, leaving me into the west. And I could see this whole pattern of it rotating. And as I say, I was trying to make that point in probably 2017 with flat earthers and saying this has got nothing to do with an equatorial mount and to do with it moving. Just like if I move this box of incense across your screen, it's not rotating. The only way that that's going to happen is if I do this to it, if I actually make a rotation. Yeah. I used to use the example of a smiley face. If we were sitting in a football stadium and I had a large smiley face on a zip wire, and I had that zip wire smiley face go from left to right field, you would still, even though you're seeing it sort of at a different angle, the mouth is still going to be in the down position. The mouth isn't going to have rolled upside down. So the moon is rotating, and I've posited that because it's all toroidal, that this is an expression of something as part of the Taurus system. I won't go into too much detail. It's been quite a long time since I've spoken about this, but if that's true, then the sun is possibly the opposite of that. So one is the cold light, one is the hot light, but both of them are these rotating systems and an expression of the toroidal world that we live in.
It's all amazing. The sky clock is amazing. All the work, all the street evangelism, everything that you and Andrea are doing is epic. I didn't know I was going to go full presentation mode with you, but it was fun.
This has been really fun, and I appreciate your time. I know you've got you resting up to do, eating the right food or whatever it is that you got to do in your
I'm gonna go eat in a minute and
pre-game stuff.
I have to lay out all my race stuff. I was like, shoot, I better get busy. But you know what? Sitting here and just visiting and talking about spirituality and faith and hope and positivity and goodness and light and the realm that we live in, this is perfect pre-race stuff, man. I'm not worried about anything and just hanging out with a friend. So this was really beneficial for me. I'll get packed up and I'll eat and stuff unless you have anything else to say.
I just want to say thank you so much for dropping in. It's been a godsend, and I will be thinking of you and others. Give JT a big thumbs up for tomorrow's run. And I'm hoping that once you've got over your exhaustion, we can have another conversation in the week or so ahead. We move house in about 10 days' time. We'll be bouncing around for for at least 6 weeks. A couple of weeks here, a couple of weeks there. So it won't be as stable as it's been the last 5-6 weeks. But it's been awesome. And I wish you a great run tomorrow. And may your time running be filled with great cogitation and thinking about all the wonderful things that you can contribute to God's awesome creation.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, I love you and your family and everybody listening. We're living in an amazing time where each breath is precious, each thought is one that can be joyful. The people that are trying to steal this from us, this time we're in, they're just panicking. They don't know what to do. But we are allowed
Mm.
to ask questions. We're allowed to seek. We're allowed to pray. We're allowed to connect. And so
Yeah,
let's connect.
awesome.
All
Well,
right.
thank you. I'll chat to the chat room for a few minutes after you've gone, but have a good evening and good rest and a
Hmm.
great run tomorrow, brother.
All right. Much love, brother.
Much love. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye for now. Well, there you go. That's Run Boston JT or Run Boston Bear. And well, what a pleasure that he was able to come and join. I don't know if anyone else has expressed an interest in joining the conversation today. I'm absolutely gagging for a wee. Um, so I won't belabor unless people want to. A couple of things I had wanted to mention was Andrea is doing trauma coaching. She is offering a free workshop in a week and a half's time. Um, so if you go to um, her channel at Trinity's, or maybe, honey, if you can drop something in on that, she's got a workshop coming on, I think next Thursday, today being Sunday, but Thursday after the coming Thursday. I think it's that day, or maybe that's the day we're moving, so I might be off on that. But I think we're talking about the 23rd. So there's a free workshop that she's offering. You know, the the healing the healing journey is not just about fixing the world out there. Hey, it is about the world inside, and many of us in the truth community are like everybody else, really needing to do that work if we're going to make this journey sort of worthwhile, or maybe that's not the right word, but to get the best outcome from this truth seeking, because just knowing that the earth is not a spinning ball and needles are bad for generally bad for you and for flu related stuff, then this is an important part of your journey, is the trauma healing, and she's good at what she does with that. So it's a free workshop. Drop in, come along, and if it speaks to you, then you may be keen to do some more work with her on that. So your own wellness, physical, spiritual, mental, is very important. Couple of other things. I know that in a way I want, in terms of Vax injury, I want the world to work it out. Oh, there you go. So Andrea has dropped a link to a free masterclass on Chiron, which is one of the energies, the stars, the luminaries, known as the wounded healer. So she, has been looking at astrology and trauma healing from the flat Earth perspective, not from the flat Earth perspective, but from the perspective of someone who understands that the world is not what we've been taught. And so from that perspective, I think that she has a unique um, offering. So there's a link there for her to her Instagram page for soul journey and deep healing. So check that out in the chat. Um, Baby Yoda, the trucker. Nice to see you. So no longer on the ball. Thanks for stopping in. Hello. That was, so in a way, on terms of the vaccines, this is a horrible thing to say in a way, but like it the numbers of died suddenly, and you probably all see that O.J. Simpson, who was a big needle pusher, um, died fairly suddenly. I know he wasn't that young, but at the same time, it seems only in the last year or two that he was beset by a rapid onset prostate cancer or other sorts of things that um, he couldn't come back from. And I was listening to that Dr. John Campbell, who was a needle pusher himself, but now reformed, um, talk about a study, peer-reviewed or a published study from the Japanese authorities, talking about how from the 2021 onset of needlecraft, they went from a certain baseline level of cancer to um, 10, 15, 20% more in some of the cancers. And as we know, you get a couple of years generally with from diagnosis to, if you're not going to survive, then you got 2, 3 years perhaps. So some of the sort of chickens are coming home to roost with that, because it has been 2, 3 years, although the spikes in incidence seem to correlate quite closely with the spike in um, spiking, which is it's dreadfully sad. But you know, if the world is to wake up, then it's only going to be through the evidence becoming unavoidable. Now, I know that the majority of people seem to want to avoid it and will cognitive dissonance it away. An uncle of mine died, not suddenly, he'd been unwell for a while, but he was super fearful during 2020, locked himself and his wife away at home, took all the needlecraft that they could get their hands on. And I was saying, this is 2020, naively saying to them, look, there's something wrong with this. You shouldn't be going along with it. And they haven't spoken to me since. He died a few weeks ago. His funeral was on Tuesday, just an hour, 2 hours maybe drive away from where we are, but there was no invitation forthcoming to go to the funeral. And which speaks to the extent to which this journey has damaged relations with loved ones. So, or Jack says Trinity's Run Boston Beer. Yeah, so subscribe to Run Boston Beer. Thanks for a great chat, Dave. Much love, chat. I didn't watch anything you guys said because I wanted to focus. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, doesn't JT have a good demeanor about him and a loving presence, I think there's a lot that can be said from that um, position. So I hope he continues to do great things. He's something of a newcomer, but he's in this thing. He's obviously been around for 44 years, and so um, what's that? I've just had an update. This might be quite relevant and incredible. This is also to do with um, someone being rushed to hospital with viral meningitis. Emergency operations relieved some pressure on his brain. Yeah, well, yeah, just people are. So thanks to JT for coming and making this a really powerful conversation and offering something really valuable to this. So I appreciate you, JT. By the way, a little plug for my Patreon. JT is a Patreon, and as part of the Patreon package, I offer a monthly uh, hangout in private. Although I could have recorded our last conversation, I think it would have been powerful for people to hear it. But I guess, then begs the question whether it's worth paying the Patreon. We are not doing that well in the finance department, to be quite blunt. So if you fancy Patreoning, if it's within your financial gift, then please go ahead and check that out, or get me a coffee, etc. One doesn't like to ask, but I said to JT the other day that the money was going to go towards buying a set of tires. The front tires on the car are showing the cord through, and unfortunately, it wasn't to be, because there wasn't enough money for groceries. So the money went on groceries rather than new tires for the car. But it's the cross that I bear right now. But on wellness, and I feel like on this, more and more people are waking up to the deception, um, the grand deception that has been wrought upon us, and we need to we need to be a light to those that come through. And I guess that if we're in that squabbling, angry mindset, which is so often the way for us pioneers of the truth movement, then we're not going to be the beacons of light that we should be. And so, JT's example is a good one to follow. I was following someone recently. I'd only heard about him. Oh, um, oh, what's his name? I actually voiced over a book um, that I got given by a conspiracy music guru when I was there a couple of years ago at Alex Michael's place. He had a book. What's the guy's name? Oh, it'll come to me. Anyway, he'd written a book on anarchy, and I actually voiced over the book. I read the book and voiced over and took photos of all the pages and put that into the thing. I must have done that a year and a half ago. So if you're interested, his name will come to me. Larkin Rose. Larkin Rose. So I came across his channel the other day, and I thought, oh, I'll start following him. Anyway, he was just a week ago bashing flat earthers and making it out to be ridiculous. So I wanted to kind of say something angry in the comments section, but I just unsubscribed, which is, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because like even in COVID movements, in ULEZ if you're in London movements, ULEZ if you're not in London is this extra tax that we have to pay when we drive into London every day, £12.50 a day, more theft. But you can go into all of these groups and say, hey, you know what, they lied about our cosmology, about the nature of the Earth, the globe spinning, NASA is a government edifice, and they will give you short shrift. And so I want everybody in the world to know that the Earth is centered on them, and that this is a God-created, perfect place that can't be damaged by climate change. It is what this place does. But at what cost to my own well-being? And that would be the same for you. Say, an uncle passes away, someone I spent, time with over my life, and the family don't invite me for the funeral, etc., etc. So at what cost, you know? So be the light of mine, let it shine. But you've got to do that, you have to be in good mind, body, and soul. Um, so World War III is on its way. I don't know if there's much more to say about that. Um, it may never materialize, actually. It may be that we just have this little squabbles and scrabbles and people stabbing people in Westfield in Australia, which happened at 3:30 p.m. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist, although there's coincidences there when you look at some of that. Smell a little bit of false flag, you know. But I think that's it, and I want to just say thank you all for coming. I appreciate you being here, and I hope to do this again soon, and perhaps have others come and join me. I know Ryan Boston Bear is planning, or JT is planning to interview people and have things on his channel, grow his presence, and so on. So go and support him. And we will look to do this again in the not too distant future. I know that every time I do it, people go, "That was really cool. Do it again soon." And then my shit kind of gets in the way. So, but that's gonna be that's gonna be my Sunday, and stay good with our creator, your creator, and your creation. We are powerful. Sorry you can't see my eyes because of the glasses, but there you go. And my missing eyebrow. It's growing back. It'll get there eventually.